From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, now 3 o'clock, Chad here. The Jets have made a change at quarterback. Zach Wilson has been benched. Tim Boyle will take over and start in Friday's game against the Miami Dolphins. Monday Night Football tonight. It's a good one, Super Bowl rematch in Kansas City. Eagles and Chiefs. And KC right now favored by 2.5. John Harbaugh says there's an outside chance that Mark Andrews could return this year after suffering an ankle injury in Thursday Night Football. The Broncos right now the hottest team in the NFL after last night's win over Minnesota. They're now 5-5 after a 1-5 start. They've won 4 straight for the first time since 2016. Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis announced his time at FSU is over after suffering a season-ending injury Saturday. Junior Tate Rodemaker will take over. FSU at Florida Saturday at 4. The Blazers have lost 7 straight. They play the first of back-to-back tomorrow in Phoenix against the Suns. Tip at 6, live game day at 3. Rip City Drive with Dwight Chad coming up next. Justin Meyers at 4:20. And Jonathan Smith expected at 5:20.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
Into a scoring order, up by 31. Chase steps back and lost the 3 of his own. Angle left, looks good and is. Cha-ching with Thunder Moneyball. Minutes number 13 tonight, 96-61. Gildas Alexander's got 28, making it look easy in 22 minutes.
Uyunglele out of the shotgun. Takes the snap. Huskies bringing pressure. Uyunglele backpedals. He throws over the middle. Incomplete.
All out blitz on the right. Get it up, Russ. Russ throws the ball to the end zone. It is caught. Touchdown, Denver.
I think the best thing is that we're getting a small taste of what it feels like around here.
There's nothing like winning. There's an element of relief that you don't have to deal with like misery for a week.
I don't buy into Super Bowl revenge games or nothing that goes out there and happens on Monday night is going to at all change or make anything different about what happened last year.
Can't take it anymore, Godfather.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad starts now.
All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad with you on this fabulous Monday. I hope you're enjoying the nice weather outside, clear skies. We opened up the show with Huey Lewis because when I walked into the studio today, the Godfather, for whatever reason, decided to bring me one of the best albums that this band has ever put out. Huey Lewis and the News. The album, of course, is Sport, and it's just chock pile with hits. So, Godfather, thank you for the vinyl, my friend. I appreciate that. That's very nice.
You played at my heartstrings last week. You told me that you used to have it, and you played it so much you broke it.
I did.
And I thought, I can't have young Chad, having that memory of sitting there sobbing over breaking a record. So, trying to take care of that.
Man, technology. The problem is with records and cassette tapes back in the day, the cassette tapes are very delicate.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd put it in the wrong player and the tape would get eaten.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would have sun damage. Sometimes the dog would get a hold of it. There were a lot of different things that could go on. Or sometimes your brother might put tape over the edges and record something over the top of the stuff that you had.
Your brother did that?
Of course, yeah. What do you think brothers do? Nice to each other? I don't think so. No, of course. So I had a lot of bad things happen, but this is very nice. Thank you so much. That is a fabulous, fabulous album right here. It says 40th anniversary. It's been that long?
I'm afraid so, Chad.
Gosh, dang it. All right, we got a big show today. Justin Meyers, host of Rip City Mornings, is going to join us on a Monday because we have an altered week this week with Trailblazer games and Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. So we want to talk to Justin coming off the weekend of college football. We'll get his take what he thinks the college football playoff rankings will be tomorrow, and we'll get his thoughts on the Civil War game, the final matchup between Oregon and Oregon State coming up on Friday. So Justin Meyers at 4:20. We expect Jonathan Smith to join us at 5:20, but with coaches, when they get their week thrown off by one day because they're playing on Friday and not Saturday, it makes the situation a little more dicey. So we'll wait and see if we're going to get a chance to talk with Jonathan Smith. If you want to jump out and reach out to the Godfather, you can do so at Dwight Chad. You'll find me on X at Chad in Rip City. Telephone number here on the show is 503-248-0620. Now, I apologize to all of the haters out there that do not want me to begin the show with this, but I have no choice. It's not my fault.
You have no choice.
That my favorite team, the Denver Broncos, is the hottest team in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, last night really was a tough transition for me because everything worked out perfectly. I got to work, I got prepared for game day, and I knew that game day, because of the 6 o'clock tip at Motor Center, would go from 3:30 up until 5, which just is right in the perfect spot because Sunday Night Football kicked off at 5:20. Vikings at the Broncos. They had won 3 straight. They were looking for the first 4-game winning streak since 2016. And at no point in time did I think Denver was going to win that game until the very end when they actually got the final stop on 4th down. They got the win. And I'm just thrilled, man. 4 straight wins after being 1-5, and Russell Wilson is back. He's back.
Yeah.
Even if you hate Russ and you're a Seahawks fan and you don't want to admit it, you know as well as I do that he's back.
Well, I think only you and I know it. He's been back. This has been a good year for him.
Yes.
Very quietly, because no one wants to say they were wrong about him last year. That's why those same people aren't really talking it up this year.
Well, I'm just happy for Russ because he took a lot of heat last year. He played poorly and deservedly so. He was garbage. But a lot of people thought he was washed. The majority thought he was washed, he was done, and somehow, after being traded from Seattle to Denver, he just fell off the face of the earth, which I always thought was nonsense. But he has really gotten back, and what it comes down to is coaching. Nathaniel Hackett, as he's proving with the Jets right now, they have the worst offense in the NFL. They're a disaster. He was a disaster in Denver. I would make the argument, if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, somehow, some reason, some why, showing favor on him, he wouldn't be employed right now.
Yeah.
He was awful last year. Sean Payton called him out before the year, and it turns out he was right. He was running a clown show with the Broncos last year. That's why he got fired. And you bring in Sean Payton, who's got experience, comes from the Parcells tree. He's won a Super Bowl. He knows offense as well as anybody. And look at what you have. It took a few games to adapt and adjust, but he's got Russ on the right track. That's really what it comes down to. Russ now, best TD to interception ratio in football. They've won 4 straight. He's top 3 in completion percentage, also top 3 in quarterback rating. So props to Russ, which is pretty cool. But I want to read these stats to you. You tell me. You pick out the Nathaniel Hackett year for Russell Wilson in terms of quarterback rating. Go back to 2018 when he was still with Seattle. 110 in quarterback rating, followed by 106, 105, 103, 84, and then 104 this year.
Huh. Might have been last year then. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was Nathaniel Hackett's year. It makes sense because Russ, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback who played at a high level for an extended period of time, years and years and years in Seattle. So he had a long track record. And then one season with Nathaniel Hackett, he suddenly is washed and falls off the face of the earth? No, that's not the case. Great coaching matters. And in the NFL, when you have a great coach that understands offense and understands quarterbacks, and we see this across the NFL now that, you know, the teams that are thriving on that side of the ball, they're connected to offensive coaches. So big props to them. And after the game, Sean Payton was asked about the fourth quarter drive, the comeback.
Yeah, we did some silly things. You know, we got a quarterback sneak. We're in the wrong formation. It's an easy call. And we go from converting a short yardage play to being backed up. But, look, it was a gutsy drive. Fortunately, we had our timeouts. We had the one challenge, but, you know, even though they converted, we got that timeout back. It was a good 2-minute drive now. It was a good drive.
Come on, Coach. He's boring me to death. Can you be a little more excited? 4 straight wins. I'm just happy to watch the Broncos on this ride right now. I don't know where it's going to end this year, but this is unexpected. The Russell Wilson play was to be expected in my mind. The part that's surprising me the most is the defensive turnaround, where they were getting shredded early in the year. They gave up 70 to the Dolphins. They were the laughingstock in the NFL, and rightfully so. And now They make a couple of tweaks, put in some younger players, and now the defense over the last 4 weeks has been one of the best units in the NFL. And their turnover ratio, they're now +6 on the year, and they forced a total of 12 turnovers over the last 3 games.
I have to tell you, the thing that surprised me about their defense the most last night was after they scored with 1:05 to go, something like that, about a minute to go. In the NFL, you kick off with a minute to go, and you think, man, batten down the hatches, because all they need is a field goal to win the game.
Especially when the team's got 3 timeouts.
Yes, and with all the timeouts, that's plenty of time. And I thought, oh, boy, you better hang on here. And, I mean, the Vikes did nothing. They couldn't do anything. I was very impressed with the defense, with the field spread out like that, how they were able to cover and really make it look like it was easy. They did a great job in that last series.
All right, let's take a listen to Russ. He deserves it, all right? Russell Wilson after the game.
First of all, I think it's belief. Second of all, I think it's execution. And third of all, it's having a mentality that, we're going to win the game. I think that's just the key. And I think that for me, it's all about the teammates. Those guys making great plays. It's, Samanje making a big first down the past several weeks. It's the line giving me enough time to make the decisions, and we're checking the play and everybody being poised. It's guys making key. I think about Jerry Jeudy making a key third down last game against the Bills, right over the ball, deep over the ball. That kept the drive alive. It's just those things. It's guys like Cortland Sutton being the best version of Cortland Sutton. He's dominant, and he's playing like he's been playing like all Pro Bowl player, and that's who he is. But that's who he is every day. So it's just being us. It's just being the best version of us when the game's on the line and having that clutch gene.
All right, so that game ended last night, and literally less than 4 minutes after that game ended, I'm on this incredible high, and I transitioned into the fifth quarter talking about a game in which the Blazers lost by 43 points. So my blood pressure's still high, and I'm coming off this incredible sensation of watching the game because it was a terrific finish, and then I'm right into a 43-point beatdown on a team that's in the beginning stages of a full rebuild. If I can make that transition in radio, I could do anything.
Yeah, but the good thing, Chad, is you do have the whole Blazer thing in perspective. I still believe it's a lot easier for you to handle what's going on than it is the average fan, who still is kind of expecting wins, maybe expecting, who knows, play in. I don't know. But you've known since day one, got to take your you got to take your solace in very little tiny baby steps.
Yes, it's like when you hit a ridiculous slice or a bad hook off the tee, and you know that behind the tree, it's like, I can't pull off a miraculous shot here. So what do? You take your medicine, you poke it out in the fairway and put yourself in a position to strike, and that's what the Blazers are in right now. And that's okay. It is what it is. But there were some great quarterback performances yesterday. Russ on that final drive was terrific. Brock Purdy, first time since '89. Joe Montana, have we seen a guy go out there with the perfect passer rating? And Brock Purdy did that yesterday with 333 yards and 3 touchdowns in that victory over Tampa Bay. And props to Purdy. After 3 straight losses and the team not looking good, back-to-back wins over Jacksonville and Tampa, where the 49ers are back to doing what they do. They look good.
Chad, you're the football expert on this panel. You got to explain to me, why is the perfect passer rating, like, I think it's 158.5, is that it?
I think it's 158.3.
0.3. Why isn't it like 150 or 160? Why would it be a number like that? Can't you figure this thing out so that it comes out?
They had a little NFL film showing that once, but I can't remember the exact reason why.
It just seems crazy.
It is, but I thought Purdy looked really good. Props to him. The Browns with the rookie quarterback in DTR, now that we know that Deshaun Watson's gone, they won a tough game against the Steelers. That Browns defense is super tough, and that's going to allow them to be close in every game they play. It's just a matter of DTR being able to play well enough and not make the big mistake.
You think he can?
No, I don't.
That's what I thought.
No, my thought process is pretty simple. If you have DTR as your quarterback, I can't take you seriously.
Yeah.
So you start looking around the AFC, and now it's a real muddied playoff picture because you have a lot of teams right there at 5-5 or a game over. Buffalo bounced back and look good against the Jets, but the Jets are awful. The Bengals are done because they don't have Joe Burrow. And then tonight you've got Philadelphia and Kansas City playing, and those are the 2 best teams in the NFL. So we'll see how it shakes out. The NFC is a much clearer picture. How about Detroit? They were on fire, had a great comeback, 17-6. They outscored the Bears in the fourth quarter. They get to win. I love this stat. First time they're 8-2 since 1962.
I know it. That's amazing, isn't it?
And the best Lions team I've ever seen in my lifetime was going back to 1991. They went 12-4 that year, and they won their final 6 games to enter the postseason as the number 2 seed in the NFC. They whacked Dallas in their home game, and then they got blown out by the Redskins in the NFC title game. That's the best Lions team I've seen. Eric Kramer was the quarterback, Barry Sanders the running back, but it's pretty wild that the Lions now at this point have arguably their best team in years, decades. It's crazy.
I was trying to think, was that the year that Mouse Davis was OC for Detroit? It might have been. I know he had a great year there. Where
It probably would have been Mouse because they were running the run and shoot at that time.
Yeah, and Barry had one of the best seasons he's ever had.
Yeah, Barry was – that was back in his early days when he was unstoppable.
Right. At his quickest, I think.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to come back, and when we do, we're going to dive into what we saw this weekend from the Oregon Ducks, who put on a show against Arizona State in that first half. Bo Nix on fire with 6 touchdowns, strengthening his bid for the Heisman Trophy. And our takeaways from a frustrating night for the Beavs in Corvallis. If I would have told you before the game, Washington would be held scoreless in the second half. Penix would throw for 162 yards. And
Beavers win. Beavers win.
That's right. And the Beavs would hold the ball for 37 minutes. You're like, yeah, they're going to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out that way, so we'll get into that. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. You got the Rip City Drive. Rip City Radio is looking for photos of your children with Santa, not the smiling, successful photos, the other kind that you show your child melting down like a snowman in July. Submit your photo today at ripcityradio.com for your chance to win a Visa gift card just in time to do some holiday shopping. Enter today and good luck from Mountain Timber Market, Quantum Fiber, and Rip City Radio.
The Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Here on 620 Rip City Radio. Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Godfather, how about Bo Nix on Saturday in that 49-13 victory over Arizona State? 24 of 29 for 404 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions. All 6 of those TDs coming in the first half.
Yeah, no, you can't play much better than that. They were a machine. In that first half, the Ducks were just a well-oiled machine, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. They were terrific, no question.
They have great balance on offense. I thought their defense was terrific. They did what they were supposed to do against a team that's not good this year, a team that's decimated by injuries. They went out and just completely overwhelmed them from start until finish.
They did. It was good for Bo Nix's Heisman candidacy. He bumped up again in the odds. It was a great show.
You know, assuming that both Oregon and Washington take care of business this weekend and they match up in the Pac-12 title game, do you think that Pac-12 championship game would come down to determining who's going to win the Heisman Trophy?
I do. Yes, I do, Chad. I think that's the showcase. It's mano-a-mano. And, yeah, I think it's always best when the Heisman winner is on, like, one of the best teams, and you find out who the best team is in this game, most likely, even though Washington has already beaten them once. I just think it's the showcase for the Heisman.
Yeah. The best numbers this year have been put up by Jaden Daniels, but because he's not on one of the best teams like Oregon or Washington, I think Bo Nix and Michael Penix are getting the nod for consideration there. So what do you make of Oregon right now? After the loss to Washington, they have done everything that we said they needed to do. Dominate competition and leave no doubt in anyone's mind where you sit when it comes to the best of the best in college football. And they've really separated themselves as the best one-loss team in the country. But along the way, after the loss at Washington, Godfather, they hammered Washington State. They won at Utah. They beat Cal. They beat USC, and they beat Arizona State. The only thing I can say in terms of being able to predict what they're going to do in the future against Washington, I really don't know, because the teams that they've been playing over the last 5 weeks aren't the best competition in the country. So they've done what they're supposed to do, but I can't take that information and be able to tell you what I think is going to happen in a game against Washington in the rematch. I like what they're doing right now, but the competition level, not quite what you would want in terms of being able to make judgments about who they are as a football team. That's where I stand.
Well, I think you certainly have documentation to take that stand. I mean, their strength of schedule isn't good. They don't own a win over a top 25 team. I don't think, now that Utah lost again and they're out of the top 25. And so that hurts you when it comes to evaluations. Now, they've got the Beavers coming in. That'll be a top 25 win. And then theoretically, they get into the championship game. That's another top 25 win if they win it. So they'll have 2, which will probably that'll suffice, I would say. But as of now, it works against them a little bit, strength of schedule.
Well, they have the number 64th in terms of ranking with strength of schedule right now.
That's not good, is it?
No, it's not. And that's one thing that's working against them, but that was also impacted. They dropped 12 spots over the weekend because they played at Arizona State. Right now, the top strength of schedules in the country: Utah, Arizona State, Texas, Purdue, Kansas State, Colorado, Virginia, Kansas, Stanford, and South Carolina. That is your top 10.
That's funny because most of those teams lost all those good games that they played,
Yes. So we'll see how things continue to shake out. But I think Oregon right now doing what they're supposed to do, win games, dominate games, and then put yourself in a position to where you can really go out and take advantage of that opportunity to rematch with Washington. So we'll get into more of the playoff rankings and the top teams in the country. But Oregon looked good. They looked really good. Bo Nix is awesome. As you put it to me over the weekend, they are a machine. Yeah. They just go out there and function at a high level. They don't make a lot of mistakes. Bo Nix knows where he's going to go with the football. He plays like a guy that has a ton of experience. The offensive line is good. The defensive line gets pressure. They're just awesome, man. That's a well-oiled machine right there.
Chad, too, I was a little concerned when they lost Dillingham as the OC. But here comes Will Stein, and, boy, he has picked it up right where Dillingham left off. They are, I think, really well coached. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They do a great job of getting the ball to their playmakers, and they have a lot of playmakers.
Speed.
Yeah, and the speed is – if you keep recruiting speed, I think you're always going to have a pretty good offense.
All right. So Oregon wins. Next up is the Civil War on Friday. Kickoff at 5:30 from Autzen Stadium. They are a 2-touchdown favorite over the Beavs, so that's what's next up for Oregon. Now, the Oregon State-Washington game was frustrating because going into the game, I said, I think Oregon State's going to outrush Washington. I think they'll hold the ball for about 35 to 37 minutes. Check and check. I thought the secondary would do a good job. They held them to 162 yards passing. I didn't expect that low of a total for Penix, but I thought the defense did a good job. And Oregon State held them scoreless in the second half, held them to 22 points, and dominated the time of possession down the stretch. And yet, in the end, they lose the game. I wasn't expecting special teams gaffes, disasters, and the turnovers, which were really costly.
Mistakes.
You can't make mistakes in a game like that against a team at the level of Washington and expect to win.
Yeah. That's absolutely it. You're playing the number 5 team in the country that probably should be ranked 3rd or 4th in the country. Man, you got to be, if not perfect, you got to be close to perfect.
And I'll say this about Washington. I've been trying over the last month to poke holes in what I would deem to be weaknesses on that team, and yet they find ways to win games. And they haven't lost a game since last October. They're experienced. They're well coached. Michael Penix is a terrific quarterback, and they've got great playmakers on the outside. Odunze showed that on Saturday night. They just know how to win. They won a game where they didn't do all the things that they like to do. They didn't throw for big numbers. They didn't run the ball particularly well, although it was better than what we've seen in most of the year for them. And they didn't hold the football for very long in that game, and yet they went into Oregon State, a tough place to play, and they found a way to gut out another victory. There's something to be said about their toughness and their understanding of how to win games.
Yeah, and they're also basically a passing team that won a game in a torrential rainstorm.
Yeah.
And now it wasn't as bad in the second half, apparently, as it was in the first half. Was a joke. I mean, receivers dropping the ball, fumbles. I mean, it was tough. You could tell the weather did impact the game. But they did what they had to do to win, and that's what it's about. Hey, they're going to win this week, Chad, and they're going to finish up the conference schedule undefeated. Now, that's pretty amazing right there, isn't it?
It is. You got to give a team credit for running the table. It doesn't happen very often. I think the last team to do it in conference was the Ducks 13 years ago. If it were that simple to run the table, teams would do it all the time.
Yeah.
So you've got to tip the cap to Washington from the standpoint that they've run the table. They're not going to lose to Washington State. They're going to win that game, and they're going to go into the Pac-12 title game. They've already locked up a berth in the Pac-12 title game. The interesting part about the Pac-12 title game is that Oregon, if they win, they're in. If they were to lose and Arizona beat Arizona State, Arizona would get in. So the Wildcats, with their season still alive. But Washington is in, and I'm just impressed. You know, there's something to be said about a team that knows how to win and is clutch when they have to be clutch, and they certainly are, even though I've been trying to poke holes in their team for the last month or so. But for the Beavers, you know, aside from the mistakes with the turnovers and the special teams, what do you think about the offense?
Chad, it disappointed me. I expected more, and I thought they would run on them with more success than they did. And I was disappointed. First half, I kind of wrote that off because of the weather. Second half, I'd like to have seen them be able to throw the ball downfield a little more, get some chunk plays. It just didn't happen for them. I mean, you give up 22 points to Washington. You're supposed to win that game. And they scored 20 points. We talked last week, how many points was it going to take to beat Washington? We thought 30 to 35 points. It didn't take that many, and they still didn't do it. I don't know what's going on with their offense.
Well, I know a lot of people, the easy thing to do is point the finger at DJU and say he's the problem. He is a part of the equation, but I think that some of it has to come down to coaching, or maybe it's a lack of what they're missing at wide receiver, where they have a bunch of guys who can run, but they're undersized players.
Right.
So it's harder for them to high point balls, to be able to win battles against physical defensive backs. And they're smaller guys, which is harder for quarterbacks to be able to see. I think that's why he likes Velling so much, because he's a big target, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of coaching, DJU, sometimes not stepping up into the pocket and delivering the football the way that he should. And then I think it's also personnel having smaller wide receivers instead of some bigger bodies that he can get the ball to.
Yeah, I believe even their smaller wideouts are not really burners. I don't think they're not sprinters. They're not. I don't think they have the speed that Oregon has at wideout.
Well, I think the Oregon State guys have speed. They're just small. They're smaller guys.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of separation though. When they.
That's true, but I think the separation comes from the physical aspect of it. These guys get bumped off the line. It's harder for them to battle against the bigger defensive backs because you got smaller wide receivers out there. Odunze can win a physical matchup, and he's one of those guys that you can throw the football up to, a 50-50 ball, believing your guy's going to come down with it.
Oh, yeah. He's done it all year.
Whether it's Irish or Gold or any of the other smaller wide receivers for Oregon State, those aren't guys that you throw the football up expecting a 50-50 ball or a one-on-one matchup where those guys can come down with it. Even Bolden, who's a fine player, those aren't his type of plays. So I think you saw the difference in talent level at wide receiver in that football game. Washington, of course, all year we've known this. They've got an NFL-type receiving core, and it showed out and showed through in that game. But the Beavers in back-to-back years, last year, they could never get the downfield passing game going the way they wanted. Part of that could be because of quarterback play. And this year with DJU, they've just never been able to get it materialized the way that they wanted to. And so you put a lot of pressure on the run game. And the problem is, if you don't pick up positive yards on first down, then you put yourself in second and long or third and long, and that's not the strength of the offense.
Yeah, and Chad, you can't take a false start penalty all the time in the middle of those drives. If you're trying to keep the ball on the ground, play a little bit conservatively, that makes it really hard to pick up yardage in those situations. And they put the ball on the ground. They dropped some balls they shouldn't have. They had an interception right at midfield in the first half, right there in the chest, and dropped it. And you just can't do it. And like you said, penalties, special teams, just too many errors.
Yeah, I thought they would win the special teams battle in that game, and I was wrong. They didn't, and it proved to be costly. That and the turnovers, and Oregon State just couldn't overcome, even though they did so many different things well to put themselves in a position to win that game. I mean, if I would have told you beforehand, Penix throws for 162, they score 22, and they go scoreless in the second half, and the Beavs outrush them, you would have said that's an easy win.
Absolutely.
They're going to walk away with the victory. And now we look at this year, and if you're a Beaver fan, after losing that game to Washington, it's always going to be thought of as what could have been because they lose 3 games by a total of 8 points. 3 games. Arizona, Washington State, and Washington by a total of 8 points. They were that close.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't get over the hump. And now.
Well, it's still a good year, but not the year that you expected.
No, we both thought they were going to compete for a chance to win the conference. And now going into the final week, they're blocked out. They can't get in. It's Washington and either Oregon or Arizona. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate. Man, so close. Now we'll see how things progress into the future. Maybe Aiden Childs will be the proper answer when they get a chance to work with him as a youngster and they can develop into the type of downfield passer they're looking for because you just can feel the tension when you're watching the offense. They run the football extremely well. Pro-style offense, offensive line is experienced, but you can feel the coaching staff not quite getting what they want out of that offense in the passing game.
2 good running backs, too. Really good.
Damian Martinez is a pro.
Yeah.
And Fenwick is a bruiser. But Martinez was awesome in that game.
That was his best game, yeah.
Lowering his shoulder, running over tacklers. He always goes forward. He's got breakaway speed, and he's physical at the point of attack. He is a big-time running back. I love Fenwick because he runs with evil intentions. And I thought DJU in the run game had that sweet run where he was able to break some tackles and really energize the crowd. When they got down there and had to settle for the field goal, that was a killer. You had a chance to get in, take the lead, and they could have won that game, but they couldn't do it. Misfiring, and when you settle for field goals in those situations, you put yourself up against it. I even thought they were going to get down and have a chance to at least kick the game-winning field goal, but they stalled out around midfield. That was frustrating, too.
They took so long getting the ball to midfield. Then they had to rush after that and put them in a bad spot. That's not a team that's going to line up where you know they're going to pass and they're able to do it. It's a little tough for them.
No, at some point you got to be able to drop back when the defense knows what's coming and move the chains through the air. Washington can do that. Oregon can do that. The best teams can do that, but Oregon State can't. They have to run the football and be in those third and short or third and mediums to have a good chance. Third and long, that's just not their bread and butter. They can't capitalize on that. And I hate to say this, Godfather, but looking ahead to Friday with Oregon and Oregon State, I just don't think Oregon State can win that game because they're not going to be able to score enough and move the football through the air the way they need to be able to have a chance to win that game because you know Oregon's going to put big points up on the board. And the Beavs aren't going to be able to do what they did last year and run the football down their throat without attempting a pass in the second half. That's not going to happen against this Oregon team. So
I agree.
I just don't think the Beavs can win. That's an Oregon game. Playing at home.
Yeah.
They're on fire. They've got everything to play for. And I just don't think Oregon State, when push comes to shove, when they hit those third and longs and Oregon State's able to get stops on first or second down in the run game, how's Oregon State going to get out of that? I don't think they can. I think they're doomed, and I think Oregon rolls on Friday. That's my initial thought on that game. Can you make any case for how Oregon State wins that game aside from massive Oregon destruction?
Well, yeah, you make the case with a lot of Oregon mistakes because there's pressure on them in this game. Yeah. You know, they got to win, really, in their minds. And then it's a rivalry game. So maybe somebody on Oregon State comes up with a heroic effort. I can't make the case, Chad.
Yeah, you're trying, and you can't.
No, I'm trying, but
because Oregon, you're asking Oregon to turn it over multiple times, which is something they don't do. They don't make the big mistake.
And they're on such a roll, too.
Yeah, that was frustrating. That game on Saturday was frustrating. That's a game they had, and they just couldn't quite get over the hump. Props to Washington, man. I've been trying to find a way for that team to go down now for the last 4 weeks, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to go unbeaten, and we're all going to get, you know what? We're going to get what we deserve. We knew it when we saw the game in Seattle that those two teams needed a rematch in the Pac-12 title game. We need to see that matchup again. Mm-hmm. Oregon thinks they should have won the first time around. Washington thinks they're the best team. Get them back out there on the field again in good conditions, in a dome, and let's see what team stands when it's all said and done. I want to see the matchup again. I want to see not only that, but I want to see Penix and Bo Nix going head-to-head, two of the best quarterbacks in the country. Those are the type of games I want to watch.
With the big trophy on the line, right?
Yes, the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, it's going to be an awesome football game. So I see Oregon and Washington handling business without any question this weekend, and then that will set up the big-time football matchup down in Vegas for the Pac-12 title game. And think about what you're going to have on the line in that game. Heisman Trophy, Pac-12 supremacy, and likely a berth into the college football playoff. That's crazy. That's big time right there.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we'll come back. An unlikely alliance has been struck in college football. What does that mean for Oregon and Oregon State? We'll discuss it next. Rip City Radio and Holt Homes want to pay your mortgage or rent in 2024. Went up to $18,000 to help offset those monthly payments in the Home for Holidays sweepstakes. Enter today at ripcityradio.com. Powered by Holt Homes, built for the Pacific Northwest.
Hey, Mike.
It's Rip City Drive on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Washington and Washington State have agreed to a 5-year continuation of their Apple Cup rivalry through the 2028 season, and that was announced on Sunday. This next year, 2024, will be played at Lumen Field up in Seattle, and the other 4 games will be played and split up between both campuses, Washington State and the University of Washington. I think this is pretty darn cool. In fact, of the major rivalries discontinued during the recent wave of realignment, the Apple Cup is the first one to extend beyond a conference affiliation. So I was surprised that this deal got done. I was surprised that Washington decided to continue the rivalry with Washington State, because I bought into the idea of football or the games that teams schedule being the most important thing. And with both Oregon and Washington entering the Big Ten and going to play difficult conference schedules now, I just didn't think they would actually schedule it regardless of the talk, because it's a difficult game that you put now in September in your non-conference, which puts you at more risk to potentially drop a game. But props to them for getting it done, because these are the type of games we love to watch in college football.
Yeah, I would say the Apple Cup is a little different than the Civil War, I would say, because you know what? Washington's not worried about beating Washington State. Not right now. They might at some point in this upcoming 5-year span. Right now, they're not concerned about them at all. I would say it's a little different in the Civil War. Oregon State, assuming they can keep their coaching staff and their recruiting, they got a shot at Oregon. I don't know why Oregon would take a chance on playing them, to be honest with you. Their schedule is going to be so difficult in the Big Ten. I think this is when you want to continue to play the Portland States, the Cal Davis, those kinds of teams in your non-conference games. To pick up a game against Oregon State is a dangerous thing to do in today's world.
Well, I'm not so sure Oregon's that worried either. They're 12-3 in their last 15 games against Oregon State.
Well, they lost last year.
Yeah, they did. But the recent history, Oregon has dominated the competition on the field. And most of those games haven't been close. Jon Smith has gotten 2 wins since he took over as Beavers head coach. But I'm just telling you, 12 of the last 15 have been won by the Ducks. So the advantage is always going to be with Oregon and Washington in those games, because they have more resources and more tools to work with. So, and the dominance, I mean, Washington usually handles Washington State too. So it's been a one-sided affair for quite some time in both series. I just thought that scheduling that game based on who you're playing in the Big Ten, I just didn't see how that made sense. But
why take the chance?
Well, I think the reason why is because of money. These are the type of games that, one, the alumni want them. Fans want these games to be played. So you're lobbing a bone to your fan base. Also, these are series and rivalries that can be branded and sold, and you can make money off of. It can be packaged for TV. It can be packaged for the fan bases. So there's money to be made by having these type of rivalry games. So my answer to everything is usually always money, and that's really definitely part of this, because these type of games can be branded and sold, and that's a big reason as to why they're doing it.
Yeah, well,
because football-wise, it doesn't make sense.
I know what you're saying, and I would just question how much money can be made off of that series. And they have traditionally now the last few years, Oregon and Oregon State have branded the whole series. The women's basketball, the volleyball, the baseball, all of that has been branded. And they keep standings and all that stuff on all the sports. I just don't know how much money is actually in it compared to the money of like the CFP or just getting into the Big Ten Conference. All of those things are worth millions of dollars. And I'm just not sure at all about what that series might be worth.
Well, I just know that these schools are hungry for money. So regardless of what the price tag is, they'll take it. I mean, they're looking to take money from Oregon State and Washington State on their way out. So they're going to look for every penny they can get. These schools it's all about money.
Every decision they've made in the last few years has been about money.
All right, Washington is 11-2 in their last 13 games against Washington State. Oregon is 12-3 in their last 15 games against Oregon State. So, we know which two schools have dominated the series. But now I'm hopeful that I want the series to be played. So I'm hopeful now that this will encourage Oregon and Oregon State to strike a deal to where we can have the Civil War played in September. It won't be at the end of the year, but I want the series to continue. I would imagine you feel the same way. Get it done.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good thing for the state. I would love to see it.
Now, I will say this. The one advantage of playing the game now compared to what we've had in the past, it's going to be a 12-team playoff moving forward. So your chances of reaching the playoff now are much higher based on how you do in your conference. So a non-conference loss, if you suffer one, is not devastating or as devastating as it used to be. Because now you can have multiple losses and still reach the playoff field if you win your conference.
Mm-hmm.
That has to factor in. We won't eliminate ourselves from playoff competition if we take a loss in the non-conference. It's good. That helps. I think teams, to a degree, will be more willing to play some games that maybe they would not have in the past, knowing that there's better access to the playoff. Because really what it's going to come down to now is your conference games. You win your conference, you're in, regardless of your record. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Maybe you're more optimistic than I'm not seeing them winning the Big Ten anytime soon. They might.
You're talking about Oregon?
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to see it. I have no idea what it's going to look like next year with all those new teams moving in.
It just seems like that first year or two, that's a really big step to take after what they've been through. I mean, look at Oregon the last 4 or 5 games. They're not playing very good teams.
No, but
and
I'm
I know
saying,
there's some of those teams in the Big Ten, obviously. But
no, but what I'm saying is that if you take the Oregon team this year and you place them in the Big Ten, they can compete with any of those teams in the Big Ten. They can certainly beat Penn State, who can't score a freaking point.
Oh, I agree with that.
We're going to probably see how they'll compete against Michigan because they're going to face off in the playoff. And I know they can handle Ohio State because that team can't score. So really you're talking about Oregon's right there near the top with the best of the best in the Big Ten this year with the team they have. They're right there with Michigan. Those other teams in the Big Ten they're all fakers. Wisconsin's a joke. Ohio State can't score. Their quarterback plays terrible.
Michigan
and the same
State.
goes with Penn State. Michigan State's terrible. Now, it'll change because Oregon's going to go through some transition because they're going to lose one of the best quarterbacks in their program's history in Bo Nix. But this year, right now, Washington and Oregon can compete with any of those teams in the Big Ten. Michigan is probably the team that's a cut above, probably. But we're going to find out because you very likely could get Washington or Oregon, the winner of the Pac-12, matching up against Washington.
Yeah.
Would you do it if you're Oregon? Would you schedule?
No, I wouldn't. I would totally understand them not doing it because it's a football risk. And I see all the other advantages for doing it. Yeah. But that playoff, all of that stuff's more important, isn't it?
I would leave that schedule slot open for what Alabama or Georgia does. Schedule a bum and pound them and don't take a loss.
Yeah.
Because it all sounds well and good until you lose that game, and then all of a sudden the committee's looking at you like, well, what's up with that?
So you would just go play Tennessee Martin or somebody like that, Ball State?
Yes. If I was making decisions for a program, I would suggest not taking that game football-wise.
Right.
As a fan, I want them to take the game.
Right. So it might be where the athletic director says, this series looks pretty good. We ought to get in. And the coaches are saying, nah, no thanks.
Yeah, athletic director wants to do it because it's a win for him.
Right. Oh, it's got to be. And it's going to keep, I think, don't you think the alumni base probably wants to play it?
Well, here's a better question that you posed to me. Do you think Phil Knight wants that game to be played?
I do, yeah.
Well, then if Phil wants it, he'll probably get it, right? Find a way to get it done, boys.
I'd like to see it, yeah.
I think $900 million donated can buy you a decision on whether or not that continues. Rip City Drive.
sports you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, it's 4 o'clock. Chad here. The Jets have made a change at quarterback. Zach Wilson has been benched and moved to third string. Tim Boyle will take over and start Friday against Miami. Monday Night Football, Super Bowl rematch, Kansas City. Eagles and Chiefs. KC is favored by 2.5. Jon Harbaugh says there's an outside chance that Mark Andrews will return this year after suffering an ankle injury on Thursday night. The Broncos are the hottest team in the league. They've won 4 straight after beating Minnesota last night. First time they've done that since 2016. They are 5-5. Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis announced his time at Florida State is over after suffering a season-ending injury Saturday. Junior Tate Rodemaker will take over. FSU at Florida Saturday at 4. Trailblazers are back in action tomorrow. They've dropped 7 straight. They're in Phoenix to meet the Suns. Tip-off at 6. I have game day starting at 3. Justin Meyers, host of Rip City Mornings, will join us coming up at 4:20.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
All right, Godfather, let's talk about these college football playoff rankings, which are coming out tomorrow. Here's what we know with what the teams in the top 8 have coming up this weekend. Georgia is going to play at Georgia Tech. I don't expect any problems for the Bulldogs there. They'll win and finish out the season unbeaten, which will set up a matchup with Alabama in the SEC title game. So that's going to be fun to watch. So Georgia, no problem. They got Georgia Tech. They should be able to roll and finish off the year unbeaten as they get ready for the SEC title game. The big matchup in the Big Ten, of course, Ohio State is at Michigan. They're number 2 in the country. Michigan is number 3. They escaped Maryland. That was a close game. That was an exciting game, but they got the job done. And that was to be expected because it was not only just a classic look-ahead game, but you were also coming off the emotional victory over Penn State with Jim Harbaugh not on the sideline. So Michigan, in a very difficult spot, coming off the emotional high and the look ahead to Ohio State, found a way to come out of Maryland alive. But that was a close one, very close one. And Maryland took an awful safety on a rough intentional grounding call at the end of the game that, they had the ball with a chance to win. They couldn't do it. Dum-dums.
I think Michigan hasn't played anybody yet at all. I have no respect for Penn State after watching them a couple of times. I don't think they're a very good team.
Well, that's their impressive win. They went to Penn State and won that game. That's it. Yeah, I don't like Penn State because they don't have offense. So they're difficult to watch. Their quarterback is not trusted. The coaches don't trust their quarterback, and so they don't try and get the football downfield.
Yeah.
And against good teams, Ohio State, Michigan, as they showed, they can't score enough to win games. It's a painful watch.
It is.
It's a very painful watch. But you're right, Michigan, we'll find out a lot more about them on Saturday. I expect them to win the game. I can say the same thing about Michigan that I can say about Oregon over their last 5 games. Haven't really played anyone, but they've dominated competition. Mm-hmm. And Michigan, aside from the game against Maryland, has dominated their competition. So that's a big matchup, and that's going to have major impact on the playoff rankings and the teams that will be in the playoff. Florida State is going to be at Florida. They're a 6.5-point favorite. Of course, the big news here, and I think this is fascinating, Jordan Travis suffered a hideous injury on Saturday where his foot was crooked. And I watched the highlight once, and I screamed, and I'm never going to watch it again. It was awful. I feel bad for him, but Florida State able to get the win. They'll finish out the year against Florida, and then they'll move on to the ACC title game and likely play Louisville. So the big question here is, how's the committee going to view Florida State without their top quarterback, Jordan Travis, in the lineup? Tate Rodemaker is going to take over. He's got some experience. He's a junior. He's a 6'4", traditional-type quarterback with a good arm, and you saw him on Saturday, played well coming in a difficult situation with Travis out. We do know how the committee responds to this in certain circumstances. Back in 2014, when Ohio State beat Oregon in the national championship, they were on their third-string quarterback, Cardell Jones. And a lot of people thought that Ohio State shouldn't get in because they had lost their top 2 quarterbacks and were not the same team. They got in and ended up winning a championship. So I think for Florida State, and Florida State's one of those problem teams for the for everyone else trying to get into the playoff right now because they're unbeaten, but they play in the ACC. How they look in this game against Florida and how they look in that game against Louisville in the ACC title game is going to be important in terms of how the committee views them. If they go out there and dominate competition with Rodemaker, I don't think they have anything to worry about. If they go out and struggle against Florida and win a close one, but they don't look effective, I think that's going to impact how the committee views them. That's my guess.
You really think an undefeated conference champ would be left out?
I don't, but if they look hideous in their next two games in close wins, I think the committee would consider it. Yeah, because I think they know, even though they've got Florida State still ranked ahead of Washington, it'll be easier for them now because think about it. After tomorrow, I expect Washington to move up in the rankings.
Me too.
Which would move Florida State out. And if Florida State's out, it would be much easier for the committee to make a case that they're not going to get in, right? That's my guess. And then they can say, well, they're not the same team without Travis in the lineup. So they go with Oregon or Texas or whoever they decide to put in, Georgia, Alabama, whatever they do. I think that this could set them up to be in a position to where they could deny Florida State with the injury.
I think it's a big move for Oregon or Washington if the Huskies get bumped up to number 4.
Yeah, I expect that to happen, especially after the win that Washington had at Oregon State. Another quality win against a very good opponent. And frankly, I think of all the teams who have been disrespected the most, it's probably Washington. They're unbeaten. They haven't lost since last October. They've run the table so far, and they've got some quality wins on their schedule. They have 3, now 4 top 25 wins. What else do you want from the team?
Yeah.
They've won in 4 of their games against top 25 opponents. That's a pretty good resume right there. And well, they're going to get another shot, too, against Oregon coming up in a couple of weeks in the Pac-12 title game. So we'll see what Tate Rodemaker can do. I'm just telling you that Florida State's not out of it, even with the injury to Jordan Travis, but a lot of it's going to depend on how they look. And I would say that maybe there's a chance they could go down at Florida this weekend without Travis on the field. We'll see how that works. Sometimes when teams lose their key guy, a lot of times it raises the level of play of the other guys on the field because everyone knows they got to step it up to be able to make it happen without their key guy in there, right?
Boy, he's been a great player for them all year, though. He's really good.
He's been dynamite. Next up, Washington, unbeaten. They've run the table so far. Coming off the win over Oregon State, they take on Washington State. I don't anticipate any issues up there at Husky Stadium in this one, do you?
No.
All right. Oregon, taking on Oregon State in the Civil War on Friday. We both agree that the Ducks, you tried to make a case for Oregon State and couldn't, and you stopped. So Oregon's going to get the win, we assume, and move on. And then in the Big 12, the situation in the Big 12, Texas is going to host Texas Tech. I fully expect them to win that game, and they'll be in the Big 12 title. Oklahoma State hosts BYU. That's a game they should win.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get Oklahoma State and Texas in the Big 12 championship game, or Oklahoma if Oklahoma State were to lose. But I expect Oklahoma State to beat BYU. The Cougars are not very good this year, and then I'll set up Texas and Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game down in Dallas.
Your dad's team can't beat Texas, can they?
Mike Gundy, his record against Texas is sensational.
Is it?
Really is. So, yeah, I think they can. Yeah, I've watched enough of Texas football over the last few weeks. Great at the line of scrimmage. Defense is pretty good, but their offense is – there's just something wrong with it. It's kind of like Oregon State. They're just misfiring on offense. So I think Oklahoma State can win that game. I'll be pulling for the Cowboys in that game. I hate Texas. But Texas will be favored. And if they finish with one loss, and if Alabama wins out, and Texas is sitting there with a win in Tuscaloosa, that really strengthens their chances, as we pointed out. And then number 8, Alabama is at Auburn. They're big favorites in the game. It's the classic rivalry game, the Iron Bowl. But Alabama right now, they know what's at stake. They win the game. They've got one loss. They're going to the SEC title game. And if they beat Georgia, they're in the playoff. It's pretty simple. They know what's at stake. So I expect them to beat Auburn. So all these teams are in great position. So a lot of this is going to play out the way we expect, I think, this weekend. And then we're going to go into championship weekend with all these playoff spots on the line.
Yeah.
So really, if you're a Duck fan, you want your team to win out and beat Washington in the Pac-12 title game, and you need some help. You want Georgia to win out. You wouldn't mind seeing FSU go down, and you wouldn't mind seeing Oklahoma State beat Texas.
Right. That would really clear it out.
The worst-case scenario for Oregon or the Pac-12 is the only sure thing for the Pac-12 is Washington winning out and finishing unbeaten. They're in. But if they don't and Oregon beats them, which many think will happen in the Pac-12 title game, if you're sitting there as the committee and Alabama wins out and you've got Georgia with one loss, Alabama with one loss as the SEC champ, Texas with one loss as the Big 12 champ with a win in Tuscaloosa, and you've got an unbeaten Florida State team, the Pac-12 is in big trouble at that point. Now, the doomsday scenario doesn't always play out.
Right.
But if it does, just keep in mind that the Pac-12 is on some questionable footing based on the fact that Florida State still ahead of Washington.
Chad, I think this is just a warning, right? We're just warning people, look out, this could happen. And if it does, you might be out of luck.
Yeah, winning out if you're Oregon is not quite enough. Not quite enough. If all those other things break against the Pac-12. And I'm just warning you because the committee should not be trusted. Just look at Washington right now sitting behind Florida State. No one in their right mind thinks that Florida State's better than Washington. No one in their right mind, everyone knows that Washington's got a better resume. And yet here we are today, and they're still sitting behind them in the rankings. I don't think it's going to happen, but if Florida State remains ahead of Washington tomorrow, then people need to cry foul and really start to raise concern about the committee's decision-making.
Yeah.
I don't think that will happen. With 4 top 25 wins against 1, and that team just lost their starting quarterback, and you're going to keep Washington at 5, get out of here with that, Godfather.
Now, I think if they are still number 4, boy, that's a sign of bad things to come.
Yeah. I do believe that Oregon right now is the best one-loss team. I believe that they're better than Alabama. I believe that they're better than Texas based on what I've seen and how they've played. But like I said, with the competition they've had after Washington, I'm not really sure what to make of it. But I do think they're probably the best one-loss team right now in the country.
Yeah. I think it's kind of hard to figure because of matchups. And you look at some of those other teams that don't have the offense that Oregon has.
Yeah.
But they're really good defensively. And that's what you get out of the Southeast Conference.
Yes.
Those teams are usually loaded on that side of the ball. So you're trying to match that up, and you just never know. I mean, I look at Oregon and think they can move the ball on anybody.
Yeah, until they show up and play Georgia, and then they can't do jack.
That's right.
That's the thing, and that's the SEC is deceptive, right? And it's the same thing with Ohio State when they played Oregon in the championship game back in 2014. Everyone thought that Oregon was going to win that game. They've got the quarterback, they've got the offense, and then they go out there and they just get destroyed at the line of scrimmage because Ohio State's got better athletes across the board.
Yeah.
They got dominated. And I just feel like that's going to happen when teams face up to play Georgia this year. You think you're good enough. You think that they're not quite the same, and then all of a sudden you're trying to match up man on man, and they're just obliterating you. That's probably what's going to happen. And what I like about Georgia, they've kind of paced themselves. And now, at the end of the year, they played Missouri, Ole Miss, and at Tennessee, and they just flipped a switch. They now look like a different team.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that you think you're close, and then you get on the field with the SEC
I know.
at the very top, and you're like, oh, crap.
Well, Chad, how many times do we have to see that before we kind of expect it, right?
Yeah, so I'm just going to work off the assumption that outside of Alabama, no one can match up physically with Georgia. Michigan, Washington, Oregon, it's going to be the same result. You'll get killed at the line of scrimmage and you'll lose a game. That's probably how it will go down.
Well, or you get in the game and everything has to go perfect for you. They have to make mistakes. You have to play clean.
But that doesn't happen because Georgia makes sure that you don't have a perfect game.
Yeah.
They don't allow it. Yeah, so I've seen it enough. I'm not going to get fooled. They're dominant at the line of scrimmage, and until someone goes out there and proves me wrong, then I'm just going to assume that that's the result. Alabama can beat them because they physically can match up. But even Michigan, as good as they are with as many NFL players as they have, I don't think they can match up physically with Georgia. That's my guess. Maybe I'm wrong this year. Maybe Michigan is the team.
And you think the Pac-12, if they get in the playoff, whether it's Washington or Oregon, you think they're in that 4 slot where they have to play Georgia in the first game?
No, I don't. If they put Florida State in, Florida State would be number 4. So you would have, I think you're going to have that 2-3 matchup where it's Michigan against Washington or Oregon. And then you have Georgia against Florida State. I think the Pac-12 winner will more than likely be at number 3, especially if it's Washington who's unbeaten.
Right.
And that's good. You want Michigan in the first game.
Yeah, you do.
Not Georgia, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see where things shake out from there. All right, when we come back, we'll get his thoughts on the rankings, which will drop tomorrow. Justin Meyers, host of Rip City Mornings, is up next on the Rip City Drive. Welcome to Around the NFL, the ultimate football podcast where the crew, Greg Rosenthal, Dan Hansis, and Mark Sessler bring you the latest gridiron updates with a hefty dose of humor. Dive into the heart of the action as these seasoned analysts dissect the week's football news, offering insightful commentary, bold predictions, and plenty of laughs along the way. Whether you're a diehard football fanatic or a casual observer, join the crew every week for a lively discussion that combines in-depth analysis with a dash of mirth. Catch the Around the NFL weekly on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, reminder, all of our local shows now streamed on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, and you'll find the live links there. Be sure to subscribe to the page. Joining us right now, and we had to do it today because of the short week and Blazer games, and, of course, the Civil War coming up on Friday. Justin Meyers, host of Rip City Mornings, got to get his thoughts. What's up, Jay?
What's going on? Hopefully everything is working out. Really excited about this new technology that we are using. Super pumped about it. Also super excited when Michael Shacker is talking about me behind my back that he forgot to mute his mic, and I can hear all the words he's saying.
Yeah,
super pumped.
No, you should be pumped. And let me tell you something about Michael Shacker, our producer. Anytime he says, hey, I'm trying something out, that's usually code for something bad's really going to happen. I know that's how that works, but I believe we have you in your crib right now. We have pictures of you. You're on the air. It's great. We were just talking about this. How do you think the committee is going to treat Florida State now that they have the injury to Jordan Travis and Tate Rodemaker's coming in?
First off, I don't think they should treat them any different, to be perfectly honest, right? I think you should treat Florida State straight up as you've treated them all year long. I do think that they are going to get jumped because Washington, again, wins another ranked game, another game against a ranked opponent and wins on the road. And I think that's what the committee was waiting to do anyways. I don't know if Jordan Travis didn't get hurt. I still think Washington would have jumped them. I don't know if Florida State is going to be treated any differently. They shouldn't, to be perfectly honest. If Florida State beats Florida, and I think they'd match up with Louisville in the ACC title game. If they win those two games, then they should be treated as an undefeated ACC champion. And if Washington falls to Oregon and they are one of 4 or one of 3 undefeateds left, they should get in. I don't think the quarterback's injury should factor anything into whether you deserve to get into the college football playoff, because we've been in this debate for how long now? How long have we been doing this, guys? Since 2014, right? Is it the most deserved? Is it the best team? Is it eyeball test? And we still can't figure it out. It took all this time. And it's like, no, it is the most deserved. You go through your schedule. And by the way, Florida State scheduled Florida and LSU out of conference, and they win the ACC. It's not their fault that Clemson is falling back. It's not their fault that, out of Miami is mediocre and fired a coach. So all that being said, Florida State should be treated as they normally should.
Okay, I want to ask you, what have you checked? Oregon has had a nice run, and I'm so impressed with the way they've been playing. Honestly, Justin, they've been terrific. But this is not exactly a juggernaut of teams that they've been beating. Their last 5 games, they've looked terrific. But where do you see this? How good are they now? Do you feel like they've continued to improve, or that do you worry the competition has allowed them to maybe soften up a little bit? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think Oregon's as good as any team in the country. I'm a homer. I get it. All right. I know that I'm sounding like a homer, but I think they're as good as any team in the country because they're balanced. And Dwight, I think they're doing what you're supposed to do against mediocre teams, which is blow their doors off. And you think about it, since they have lost to Washington, they haven't been in a competitive game in the fourth quarter, right? Utah didn't even score. It was a little sleepy start against Washington State, but the second half they pulled away. The Cougs had no chance. They were one awful pass interference call from absolutely closing the doors against USC, but still USC did not have the ball with a chance to win in the fourth quarter. And they were at 42-0 against Arizona State on the road. So I think that's what you're supposed to do, right? If you go up against mediocre opponents, it'd be different if they were squeaking out these games. It would be different if they were, last-second field goals or having to go to overtime like some other teams that they're being compared with. But they haven't played a competitive fourth quarter since that Washington game. And that's what you're supposed to do against mediocre teams.
We're talking with Justin Meyers, host of Rip City Mornings. Yeah, and that's the biggest compliment I can give Oregon is that they have dominated competition, much like Michigan until the Maryland game. They haven't really played anyone, but they've dominated the competition that they've had, which I think is terrific. What's your take on UW coming out of Corvallis with the victory? How do you see them?
I mean, Washington is the thing about them that is infuriating is they are relentless, right? How many times have we seen them this year where it's like, all right, they're ready to be picked off. They're ready to be picked off. They're ready to be picked off. Nope, nope, nope. They keep coming out of these games, finding ways to win. Also, the other thing that is the most impressive about Washington, they know who they are. They make no apologies for who they are, and they do not change. And a lot of people thought going into a driving rainstorm that, right, Washington is going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to ugly it up with Oregon State. The way that they've been throwing the ball all season long, it's not going to work. And did they stop? No. They kept throwing back shoulder fades to Odunze, first quarter, second quarter. They really didn't play a lot of offense in the third quarter, but then in the fourth quarter, and they never stop. It is infuriating. They did the same thing against Oregon. Oregon took control of that game. Did they stop throwing back shoulder fades? No. They just kept throwing them over and over and over again, and you have to credit a team like that. They know who they are. They know where their strengths lie, and they do not go away from it. Whereas I thought Jon Smith made some mistakes, especially in that second half. I thought the fact that Damian Martinez didn't get the ball 30, 35, 40 times in this game, I thought was a big mistake because that's where their power lies. That's where they were moving the ball. And all of a sudden, without throwing deep all that long throughout the entire season, they just decided to kind of let DJU cook in that second half. I thought was a big mistake.
Okay, you mentioned you think Oregon can play with anybody in the country, Justin. And I'm curious how you feel them and Washington stack up against the likes of Georgia. Because I see Georgia, and I think, man, that's a handful for these teams.
I hear what you're saying. I go back to last year, Dwight, and we go into the college football playoff, right? And TCU, like there was a cute little story and TCU went in and put it on Michigan. And Michigan was at that time, right, one of the top 2 teams in the country. And TCU went in and put it on them. And then Georgia was a 42-yard field goal away from being beaten by Ohio State in that game, in that quarterfinal game. I think you go back to that 49-3 beatdown that Georgia put on Oregon a year and 3 months ago, and the changes that Oregon has made on the offensive line, in the trenches, the speed, the defensive backfield. I think Oregon can play with anybody. Now, I'm not saying they could beat anybody. You got to play a perfect football game against Georgia, against Alabama, against Michigan, against Ohio State, which is, I mean, that's the deal. You want to play big boy football, right? You want to get in with the blue bloods and you want to play at the top tier. Well, you got to get in, take your shot, and you got to play mistake-free football. But if they do, I don't think there's a better quarterback in the country than Bo Nix. I don't know if there's better running backs out there than Bucky Irving. Troy Franklin, if you look at his numbers, is the best wide receiver in the country. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get all the pub, but Troy Franklin is.
All right, there you go. There's Justin Meyers. We appreciate his time on the show today. We tried, Shacker tried, and then it blew up in our face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I didn't see that one coming.
That gave out. It wasn't the video that gave out. It was the audio. Our radio station equipment.
Okay. Doesn't really matter at this point.
Bye, Justin. Happy Thanksgiving, Justin. Yeah. We appreciate your time.
We left some good questions on the table.
That's too bad. That's too bad. We tried it.
The YouTube part was perfect.
503-248-0620 is your telephone number. If you want to jump on board, you can do so. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. And this is what we're looking at right now. Oregon and Oregon State will play on Friday. You've got all the big teams in action this weekend in rivalry week, and we'll see how things shake out. I mean, really, the same thing applies for Oregon that we've talked about. Just go out there and handle your business and then let the chips lie where they may. That's all they can do. Just keep dominating competition and take care of business against Washington, and then put yourself squarely in a position where the committee's got to make a tough choice.
Yeah, and don't put yourself in a position where the committee has a reason to eliminate you, which would be taking 4 quarters to dispatch the Beavers. You don't want it to be that close. You've got to come out, show well. A lot of people are going to be watching this game. It doesn't have a lot of TV competition being played when it's being played. So you got a chance to impress a lot of people or depress a lot of people, too, if you don't play well.
Yeah, I agree. I would much rather go out there and win the next 2 games, beat Oregon State, beat Washington, and put yourself in a position. If the committee passes on you, And so be it.
Yeah.
They pass on you because they felt like they had better options, but at least you know you did everything within your power to put yourself in a position.
Yeah.
And you won the rematch against Washington, and you won the Pac-12, and you dominated competition down the stretch.
Yeah, and you'll go to a nice bowl game somewhere.
And more than likely, if they handle business and finish with one loss and a conference champ, those other scenarios are probably not going to go exactly the way that we think. Georgia's probably going to beat Alabama, and that's going to open up a slot, and they're in. You're fine. You're going to be okay. Yeah, I thought he made a good point about Oregon State, too, where they, as well as they ran the football, it wasn't quite enough. But I credit Washington for doing a pretty good job in situations on first down.
I saw some stats, Chad, and the running in the second half wasn't as good as it should have been. They were deterred from running because they really weren't running that well. It was under 4 yards a carry, I think, in the second half. And to confine yourself to that power game, you got to do a little better than that.
Well, I credit the Washington defensive front. I thought Oregon State going in would rush for over 200 yards, and they did not. So Washington, while Oregon State was able to get some movement, they did a better job with their defensive front than what I thought. The Oregon State offensive line is experienced and really good, and I thought they were going to win the game up front, but Washington did enough. They held their own, and they put DJU in some, difficult third down passing situations, and that's just not the Beaver strength. So, it's like I've told you the last few weeks with Washington, it's a beauty contest in college football, but I still give the nod to teams that find ways to win because it's not easy to win every flipping game. It's tough. Mm-hmm. Even Michigan along the way. They had this game against Maryland, coming off the win over Penn State, Ohio State the following week. They found a way to get the win in a situation where they could have easily lost that game. They found a way. You can't dominate and blow out every opponent. It's impossible. Georgia's had a couple of close calls this year. Oregon, after the loss to the close loss to Washington, they've been able to dominate competition. So we'll see how things continue to shake out. I think the Ducks look good. They look really good. And when you have Bo Nix and the ability to move the football the way they do, they got to feel pretty good about themselves. The defense is playing good football. They're better at the line of scrimmage than they've been in quite some time. They got to feel good about their chances moving forward.
My feeling, too, Chad, if they get by the Huskies, Bo Nix will be the best quarterback on the field. I don't care who they play.
Let me think about that. So if Florida State's in, yes, that's a check. I would take Bo Nix over J.J. McCarthy, and I would take him over Beck. Yeah, so, I would agree with that.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah, having the best quarterback doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But Marcus Mariota was the best quarterback in the playoff in 2014, too, and he played a third stringer and got racked up. The problem is in those games, those championship games, the line of scrimmage is so critical. Yeah, I just wonder how you think a team can match up, and then you show up against Georgia and you realize how far away you are from that, because they're so good and they're so littered with 5 stars and stuff. I don't know. I just know that this Oregon team might be the best I've seen them have in terms of complete football teams. Yeah. I want to see them. I hope they get a chance to play a team like Georgia. Like, that's a game I would like to see. Absolutely. How does it match up? I want to see it. And it would give Bo Nix a chance to have some level of personal revenge against the conference, too, that quickly disposed of him and moved on because he couldn't get the job done, and he comes out to the Pac-12 and restores himself. He was terrific. That first half, 6 touchdowns in the first half, it almost didn't look fair. Like, it was just men amongst boys out there.
Yeah.
With their speed and their playmakers and the way he spreads the football around. What I like about Bo Nix, too, decisive with his decision-making. Because you know what coaches want? They want quarterbacks to make quick decisions from the pocket. He gets the ball. He knows where he wants to go. Boom, it's out of his hand. He doesn't waste time. He's quick.
He's so composed, too. You never see him look like he's being rushed, harried, under pressure, having trouble. Everything seems easy for him. And it's not. It's not that easy. He sure makes it look easy.
And then Michael Penix, even when he's under pressure or he's in a position that looks like he's going to have some issues, he remains remarkably poised. Those two guys both, I've been impressed with their demeanor and the way they carry themselves all year. Quarterback level at its finest, high-level quarterback play.
Well, Penix has proven in their close games, which they've had a few, he can come up with a big throw when you need it.
Yeah, big throw, big play. He, like Bo Nix, both guys, what connects them, I think, is their decision-making, the way they process, the quick, decisive throws from the pocket where he's on time and on target. And that's what you need to be in the NFL, on time, on target. And if you can do that, you'll have a chance to go to the next level. So I give both those guys a chance in the NFL to latch on somewhere and have success because of their processing and the way they deliver the football on time and on target. There are a lot of guys in the NFL that can't do that. But when you do it at a high rate, teams will want you because coaches can work with guys like that. On time and on target. Boom.
Yeah.
The ball's where it needs to be. And, of course, in the NFL, the windows are tighter. So we'll see how things shake out. I feel bad for the Beavs. I wanted them to get that win because it would have given them extra juice going into the game against Oregon on Friday because they would have been playing for something, a chance to go to the conference title game. And they fell short. They held them scoreless in the second half.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, Godfather. They were right there. All right, let's go out to the phones. Let's go to Jeff in Vancouver. He's a big Washington fan. He was gripping on Saturday, but they got the job done. Jeff, props to your Huskies, man, showing toughness once again. What's your take?
They did it. I don't know how, but they did it.
No, they did. They looked impressive, man. They've found a way to win. There's toughness. They haven't lost since last October. I like what I see with them, and I love Penix.
So I got a question for you. So Washington, you guys can fact check me. I think it's true. Washington has the most top 25. Pretty, but it's proven they've played more ranked teams than Florida State. If Florida State somehow loses to Louisville, which it looks like it's a possibility since they just lost their quarterback, and then I would imagine Washington and Oregon would both want, for both of them to get in, right? They would want Alabama to lose. Do you see, Chad, any way that both Washington and Oregon in with Washington's resume, even if they have one loss?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do see that. Yeah, Jeff, you're right, because Washington has a tremendous resume now with 4 top 25 wins. If they were to lose a close game to Oregon and Georgia will win out and Florida State were to take a loss and Texas were to take a loss, then, yeah, that's going to open up the door. The Pac-12 could absolutely get 2 teams in this year. It would need a lot of things to break their way as a conference, but it is a possibility. And that'd be awesome because then you could have a potential rematch between Washington and Oregon at some point in the playoff.
Be crazy to have 2 Pac-12 teams after all this time of not having anybody there.
All right. We're going to keep things rolling here on the show. We may or may not have Oregon State head coach Jonathan Smith at 5:20. We will find out about that. But when we come back, we got to talk a little NFL. The message for the Chargers is still the same today. Fire your head coach ASAP. You should stop watching their games. It's only going to drive more frustration in you.
It's killing me watching these games.
You're worried about watching Cleveland and Baltimore because you don't want to see a defensive struggle, but you put yourself through the meat grinder of watching the Chargers play football.
They are hapless.
How you can have Justin Herbert and be 4-6 and you're going to miss the playoffs is beyond my understanding.
Yeah, 4 drops yesterday. That was nice.
Fire Brandon Staley. We'll get to that next.
The Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Here on 620 Rip City Radio. Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
Yeah, I really think that what we're seeing right now with the Chargers in the long run is going to be more of a blessing than it is a curse, because as games continue to play out, it's going to become very obvious to ownership that even though their tight pockets don't want to pay for a new coach, they're going to have to fire their coach. Brandon Staley needs to be gone, so they stop wasting all this time they got with Justin Herbert, who is absolutely one of the most delicious quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, it didn't do him any good either to have a little post-game tiff with a reporter in the news conference afterwards. That was not a good look either.
No, he's feeling the pressure.
Oh, he's real sensitive now.
He's sensitive. His team blew that playoff game against Jacksonville, and this year so far has been a complete disaster. That 4-6, they're not going to make the playoffs in the AFC.
No.
Because you're going to ask this team, it's going to take 10 wins minimum to make it in the AFC because the competition is so stiff. The Chargers are 4-6. So you're asking this team to suddenly go 6-2 down the stretch?
Not going to happen.
It's not happening. That team's not going 6-2 down the stretch. And
they'll be lucky to get 4-4. I can't believe they could do that.
And you've always told me not to feel sorry for a millionaire, but I got to be honest with you. I feel sorry for Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Well, athletes don't count. They don't. So they're millionaires, but that's different.
He's in a very difficult spot because he's surrounded by incompetence.
Yeah.
And I think Brandon Staley's a smart guy, but he's just not head coaching material. And he's not the right guy to steer you or to get this ship back on track. They need an offensive mind. They need a guy with experience. They need someone like, Sean Payton. They need that type of coach to come in and work with Justin Herbert and go out there and win a bunch of football games. But until they get rid of Brandon Staley, this type of nonsense, they're just going to continue to invent new ways to lose and to blow games.
Chad, in this era, though, haven't we seen enough of defensive coaches trying to be head coaches? It's not working to a great degree of the time. Yeah, it'll work sometimes. For the most part, in this offensive era of football, give me an offensive guy running my team.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I don't want a defensive guy. Look at the defensive coaches around the NFL and tell me how their offenses are doing. We got plenty of examples of how it's a disaster.
How about Belichick?
Belichick, terrible.
Yeah.
Look at the Commanders, terrible. Ron Rivera not getting the job done.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing what's going on with the Chargers. It's just all over the place. It's a mess. It's a total mess. Look at the Jets. That's a disaster right now.
Oh, yeah.
Defensive-minded head coach, Hackett's your offensive coordinator, and they have no idea how to move the football or to score touchdowns, which is the ultimate goal of playing football. We got to score touchdowns. They can't do it. So it's tough to watch. I am convinced that Justin Herbert is not anywhere near close to the problem with the Chargers. He is a terrific quarterback, but like a lot of great players, if you're surrounded by incompetence or you have an organization that's not sharp in terms of how they function, this is the result.
He played an excellent game yesterday, too. He ran the ball very effectively for them, which I don't know that he really likes doing, but he did it and got some big yardage for them. He throws the ball once at the goal line, once in the end zone, and got good receivers drop the ball on him. I mean, I don't even know where to start on that.
Yeah.
This can't happen in the NFL.
Well, the reality is that you're going to have games where guys drop balls, but the problem is Justin Herbert's trying to overcome so much more from a preparation standpoint, scheming standpoint, coach decision standpoint. There's just a lot of things to overcome, and it's just frustrating to watch because that team with him should not be 4-6. And it's not like they're short on talent. They've got playmakers on offense. They've got a very expensive defense. They should be doing a lot better. Let's go out to Joel in Newburgh who wants to talk about the Chargers. Joel, what's up? What's your takeaway on what you're seeing with Justin Herbert and company?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, as a Ducks fan, boy, it's tough. He lit up the NFL the first 2 years, but Brandon Staley. So the thing I always wonder is you guys are talking about, defensive head coaches having bad offenses. Well, what about him and his terrible defense?
Yeah.
He's got, the dead last defense in every stinking category. So, I don't know who he's talking to in that organization, but he has a crappy defense, and he's ruining an awesome quarterback. And everybody talks about, look at the talent on the team. Yes, everybody's getting older, but find me a better wide receiver on third down than Keenan Allen. Like, yeah, it just blows my mind. I mean, the last years I've been watching the Chargers, hoping they would win for Herbert's sake, but this year I've been hoping they lose every game as excruciatingly as possible so he can get out of there and Herbert can get a better coach. Thanks, guys.
You got it. Yeah, I'm telling you, I think it's a blessing because now it's going to be pretty obvious we got to make a change.
Yeah, he's adopted your philosophy on this one.
Yeah.
Just be real bad, get the guy fired, and move on.
Because if they were to be just good enough and make the playoffs, the Chargers, based on what we know, probably wouldn't make the change.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a major issue. You don't want that. So I don't know what to tell you. I want Justin Herbert to do so well. I think he's a terrific guy. He's a great quarterback, and I love watching him play football. And he's a playmaker. He's been doing this even last week against Detroit. He was making plays all over the field. And he makes a good point. If you're a defensive coach, at least show me that your defense is near the top in the league.
It's not.
Because normally with great coaches, they figure out their side of the ball real quick, right? It didn't take Sean Payton long to figure things out in Denver. Give him about 6 games, and he started to figure things out real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Great coaches figure out their side of the ball. I mean, look at Belichick. He has no idea what he's doing when it comes to drafting offensive players or working with quarterbacks or finding a coordinator. No clue.
He couldn't even find a coordinator. That's the biggest joke of all.
I know. It's so bad. Yeah, in today's NFL, I mean, if you got to score and you got to move the football, and I would just go with an offensive coach. So we'll see what happens with the Chargers. But Justin Herbert, man, until he gets a coach, I can't take them seriously. I can't take the Chargers seriously with Staley. But going into the year, there was no doubt in my mind they were going to be a postseason team. You look at the team, you're like, Herbert, loaded up on defense and playmakers on offense. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And they're 4-6, back-to-back losses.
All of them close, too.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, too. Teams, you know how this goes. You get in these close games, you know, teams that win and get over those spots, they have a certain belief and an understanding that when they get in those spots, they have the confidence they're going to be able to execute. Now the Chargers are a team, and I've seen this happen in years where it snowballs. They're going to get into those spots, and certain guys will be like, uh-oh.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Yep.
You know, you don't think the same. You start to grip and press because you don't want to make the mistake, and guess what happens? You end up making more mistakes. Yes. It's a mess.
So predictable.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that AFC playoff picture is unpredictable, Godfather. Take a listen to the teams right now that are right there in the mix of it. The AFC is so much different than the NFC in terms of teams that are there. So right now, 1 through 7, Kansas City, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Miami, Cleveland, Houston, and Pittsburgh. And that final team there is 6 and 4. Buffalo at 6 and 5, Indianapolis at 5 and 5, Denver at 5 and 5, Cincinnati at 5 and 5, the Raiders at 5 and 6, and the Chargers sitting there in 13th at 4 and 6. Like that playoff picture, all of these games matter so much, and games in conference are going to matter when it comes to tiebreakers, and you're going to have all these teams jumbled up down the stretch to see how things shake out. The problem for the Chargers is that they've got some tough games coming up. Their schedule is a little bit tricky for them down the stretch because next up, they got the Ravens. Then they're at the Patriots. Then they come home to take on the Broncos. And then they play the Chiefs. They still got a game against the Bills in there, too. So Ravens, Patriots, Broncos twice, at the Raiders, and home against the Bills and Chiefs. There's more losses coming for them.
See you next season, boys.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We got more NFL that we're going to get to. How about Brock Purdy yesterday having a Joe Montana-type performance?
He's the greatest.
We'll get back to Russ and what the Broncos are doing, which is impressive, and we'll talk about tonight's game. Could be a Super Bowl preview, which is a Super Bowl rematch from last year. Philadelphia in Kansas City. The Chiefs favored by 2.5. No Taylor Swift tonight?
Supposedly she can't be there. I think they changed the tour dates in Argentina on her. Something like that. Her parents are going to be there, though, supposedly.
All right, we'll talk more ball when we come back on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Welcome to Around the NFL, the ultimate football podcast where the crew, Greg Rosenthal, Dan Hansis, and Mark Sessler bring you the latest gridiron updates with a hefty dose of humor. Dive into the heart of the action as these seasoned analysts dissect the week's football news, offering insightful commentary, bold predictions, and plenty of laughs along the way. Whether you're a diehard football fanatic or a casual observer, join the crew every week for a lively discussion that combines in-depth analysis with a dash of mirth. Catch the Around the NFL Weekly on the
Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
Yeah, we got a Super Bowl rematch on Monday Night Football coming up here in a few minutes on ABC. Eagles and Chiefs from Kansas City, with the Chiefs favored by 2.5. Elsewhere in the NFL, Jon Harbaugh says there's an outside chance Mark Andrews could return this year after suffering an ankle injury on Thursday night. The Jets have made a change at quarterback. Zach Wilson has been benched. Tim Boyle will take over and play against the Dolphins on Friday. Florida State quarterback Jordan Travis announced his time at FSU is over after suffering a season-ending injury Saturday. Junior Tate Rodemaker will take over. FSU will be at Florida Saturday, kickoff at 4. Trailblazers have dropped 7 straight. First of a back-to-back tomorrow in Phoenix against the Suns. Tip-off at 6. I've got game day starting at 3. We got more of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
Under restoring order, up by 31. Shea steps back and lofts a 3 of his own. Angle left, looks good and is. Cha-ching at Thunder Moneyball. Minutes number 13 tonight. 96-61. Gildas Alexander's got 28, making it look easy in 22 minutes.
Uyunglele out of the shotgun. Takes a snap. Huskies bringing pressure. Uyunglele backpedals. He throws over the middle. Incomplete.
All-out blitz on the way. Get it up, Russ. Russ throws the ball to the end zone. It is caught. Touchdown, Denver.
I think the best thing is that we're getting a small taste of what winning feels like around here.
Well, there's nothing like winning. There's an element of relief that you don't have to deal with, like misery for a week.
I don't buy into Super Bowl revenge games, or nothing that goes out there and happens on Monday night is going to at all change or make anything different about what happened last year.
Can't take it anymore, Godfather.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad starts now.
All right, we got some goodies to give away. The Trans-Siberian Orchestra are going to be in action at Moda Center this weekend. And if you'd like a pair of tickets for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, call now. We'll take caller 3, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Trans-Siberian Orchestra tickets. Caller 3 right now to 503-248-0620. And you'll get a pair of tickets. Shacker told me it's a 3 o'clock showing. Call now. Trans-Siberian Orchestra here, courtesy of the Rip City Drive. 503-248-0620. Your chance to win is right now. All right, Monday Night Football. This is a good one, Godfather. The Eagles and Chiefs from Kansas City. It appears that Taylor Swift, due to scheduling conflicts with their tour, won't be on hand. That's very sad.
Yes, I think it's not quite must-see television now that she's not going to be there.
Well, I just saw a video floating around where DeAndre Swift and Jason Kelce just happened to be standing side by side, walking out of the tunnel into the stadium, where all you saw was Swift and Kelce. I thought Jason Kelce's a smart enough guy and a funny enough guy to where that was probably planned out. Here, you stand here, I'll stand here. We'll walk through the tunnel together.
Yeah, you know it was planned. Absolutely.
Little nice little troll on his brother as he gets ready for battle. But this is a big-time football game. I believe these are the two best teams in football.
They
Chiefs
are right now.
And Eagles. And I think we're going to see these two teams in the Super Bowl again. But I'm really anxious for this game for a couple of reasons. One, we know what Kansas City's issues have been so far this year. The defense has been sensational. The offense has been good but not great. And we've been waiting for this young receiving core to really kind of find their stride and get things rolling for Patrick Mahomes as they head down the final stretch of the regular season. So I want to see how they respond to a very good defense by Philly. But the key with Philly is that if you can hold their pass rush and not let them get to your quarterback and you give them time, you can make some plays on them. So we'll see if the Chiefs are able to do that. And then for the Eagles, very similar to Kansas City, they've won a lot of football games, but they haven't quite hit on all cylinders yet because they're still trying to discover their identity on offense, and their quarterback, Jalen Hurts, has been banged up a little bit. So I feel like tonight is a great game from two very good teams who are still searching for themselves a little bit.
I think if both of them continue their path to having the home field advantage in the playoffs, it's going to be real hard to keep either one of those teams out of the Super Bowl.
I agree. And that's why I picked both of those teams before the year began, because I thought that they would have success during the regular season. And, you know, when you got to travel to Philly or Kansas City and have hopes of winning a playoff game, that's really tough because those teams are really good and they play really well at home. But what I like most about the Chiefs this year, the defense has been great. And I think the Chiefs are more dangerous this year than they have been in previous years because the defense they can lean on. They don't have to play perfect offense to win games now.
Yeah.
That's a major advantage.
Yeah, I think it really does take the heat off their offense a little bit. And it's about time because their offense has had a big burden for the last few years. They've needed a lot of points to win some of these games.
No question. And for the Eagles, it's pretty simple. Win the battle at the line of scrimmage. And they're, similar to Oregon from the standpoint that they have good balance on offense. They can throw it, but they're really dangerous when they get the run game going, and then you're trying to guess on defense what's coming next. Because as you pointed out, the Eagles, they'll run when you're thinking pass. They'll pass when you're thinking run, but they do a very good job of mixing it up.
Great offensive line, too. Guys who have been around so long, been together for a long time. The coordination up front is terrific.
Who do you like in that game tonight?
Probably Kansas City, I think, because it's being played in Kansas City.
Yeah, I lean Chiefs a little bit on this one, but I think it's going to come down to the wire.
I wouldn't put money on this game, Chad. This is one of those stay away from games, I think.
All right, so the Chiefs and Eagles coming up here in a few minutes. Monday Night Football. This is one of the best games you're going to see all year with these two teams, a rematch of the Super Bowl. Big props to Brock Purdy yesterday. A perfect passer rating, 158.3. First time that's happened since Montana back in 89. 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. And, man, the 49ers were humming. The last 2 weeks against Jacksonville and the Buccaneers, it's almost like those 3 weeks that they lost 3 straight games didn't even happen.
Yeah,
they look normal again.
They just took a little break in the action. That was amazing.
Now, do I think that the 49ers can play like that on the road against Philadelphia? No, I don't think so come playoff time. But I'll say this about San Francisco. When they have their playmakers, when they've got all their key guys, Debo and Ayuk and McCaffrey, and you've got Purdy out there, that is a dangerous football team. Dangerous football team because you got playmakers and a quarterback that will do what the coach wants. And as you pointed out, you just love watching Shanahan scheme up games because he's a whiz in learning different ways and finding different ways to get the ball into the hands of his playmakers.
For sure. But what I like the move they made during the season to bring Chase Young in to play the opposite side of the line. Their pass rush is devastating right now. If they can keep all those guys healthy, which is a bit problematical with some of these guys, Bosa and Young. I mean, they get hurt, but they're really tough up front on both sides of the ball.
I feel like we need a San Francisco-Philadelphia rematch, don't we?
Yeah, with quarterback healthy the whole game, all that stuff. No excuses, no alibis. Hopefully in San Francisco, because the weather will be better, I want to see it on a field where the weather doesn't matter.
In the AFC, we know that Kansas City is the best team. Who would you slot behind them now that we have the injury to Joe Burrow? Is it Baltimore? Probably.
It probably is. All the usual suspects are really not available to us right now. Normally you'd say, wow, I like Cincinnati a little bit, or I like Buffalo. Those teams are out of it, really. And I don't know what to say. You're probably right with Baltimore. Maybe, what do you think about Miami?
No, I still think Jacksonville is a dangerous football team. I know they got whacked by the 49ers, which was disgraceful coming off the bye week, but they're going to win a lot of games down the stretch, and they'll be in a position to play the majority of their playoff games at home. I'm thinking now that it's really going to come down to 4 teams. I'll put Miami on the list. Miami, Jacksonville, Kansas City, Baltimore. That's kind of the 4 teams I'm looking at now as one of those 4 I feel confident in will win the AFC. With a heavy edge going to Kansas City because the Chiefs are probably going to get home field again, which means Patrick Mahomes will play one less playoff game and once again never have to leave his stadium to go play a playoff game, which is mind-numbingly amazing.
Yeah.
He's never played away from home in the postseason. That's a good way to do it.
That's the thing, though. He's earned it. I mean, they've played well enough in the regular season. And sometimes for good teams like that, it's hard to play that consistently, after you've won a Super Bowl, for instance. That's hard, and they've done it in the regular season.
I'll say one other thing, too, about the NFC. I do believe that Philadelphia and San Francisco could be on a crash course, but Detroit is playing sensational ball right now. And if they continue to win and you have to go to that dome to play them in the postseason, that could be a problem for you. They're a scary good football team because their offensive line is sensational. They're opportunistic on defense, and they've got a mentality on offense. They know how to run the football, and their quarterback's playing at a high level. Detroit is looking more and more dangerous as time moves along.
Yes.
And right now, they're number 2 in the NFC. We'll see how that continues to shake out, but they're winning tough games. And yesterday was a classic game where sometimes you got to win coming from behind, and they scored big late and got the win over Chicago.
And Jared Goff has turned out to be a pretty darn good quarterback.
Yeah. He looks really good. He went there. He got kind of kicked to the curb by Sean McVay.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him in. They've worked with him, and he's played great. And that was a guy that took his team to the Super Bowl before they discarded him.
Yeah.
But he wasn't quite what McVay was looking for. But, sometimes those things work out for the best because he fits Detroit and what their coach is trying to do so well. And Dan Campbell's a likable guy. I know you're a fan of him, and I still can't believe it. My dad was laughing. He's like, I was 13. 13 the last time Detroit was 8-2. I wasn't even born yet. That's a long time. 8-2 last time, 1962. And there they are in the mix. It's impressive. It's pretty darn impressive. So we'll see how things shake out, but that's where we're at right now. Philadelphia, Detroit, San Francisco, the top 3 in the NFC. Kansas City, Baltimore, Jacksonville, followed by Miami and Cleveland. That's your top 5 right now in the AFC, separated by a game. That's the NFL gets what they want, Godfather. They get what they want. Parity.
It's set up for parity, and they're getting it.
Gosh. I mean, there are so many teams. You can go all the way down to number 14 in the AFC, and you got 14 teams that are still alive. Tennessee and New England would appear to be out, but everyone else is still in a position to make some noise if they can string together a few wins. Look at Denver. They were out of it, 1-5. 4 straight wins. Now they're right back in the mix. It's amazing what a few weeks can do for a football team.
I want to hear how crazy you are now, right? Denver in the playoffs?
I can't say that yet.
Okay, good.
I can't say that yet.
Because if you had said it, I would say, come on now.
But I will say this. Their next game at home against Cleveland, who has a rookie quarterback in DTR. That's a game you can win. And if they get to 6-5, I mean, their percentage chances, I keep looking at the playoff predictor. Each week when they win, it continues to go up, and now it just skyrocketed almost 30%. And if they beat Cleveland, it's going to go up again.
Yeah.
And their schedule now, they've got 2 games against the Chargers, but they might be able to get 1 or 2 of those now. They play New England. They still have a game against the Raiders. They got one really brutal game. It's at Detroit. They're not going to win that game. But these other games, with the way they're playing defense right now, they put themselves in a position where they have a chance. And I don't even care if they make the playoffs or not. The fact that they were able to turn it around lets me know the most important thing, that Sean Payton knows what the flip he's doing. And Russell Wilson was not some type of damaged product when he came over from Seattle. They just had a dumb coach in Nathaniel Hackett. That's all. He's just a dumb coach. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's amazing, too. Russ never threw him under the bus the whole way. Never once said a bad word about him.
Isn't it incredible, though, that a dumb coach could get an NFL job with basically nothing in his background to show you that he deserved it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what was there to make you think he was going to be a success?
Yeah, I should have known with the creepy smiles and the giggling when they introduced him as coach. It's like, oh, he's a kook.
Here comes trouble.
Huh. Sean Payton is your classic grumpy head coach. Even when they win, he's not really happy about it. We got to clean up a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, that's the way he's supposed to be.
He's not going to throw a bunch of praise on guys, even if they won 4 straight.
He's a big picture guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we won four in a row, but we were 1-5. So let's try to keep it in perspective here.
We lost to some lousy teams.
Yeah. Now you look back, it's like, dang, if they would have not lost the 1-point game to the Raiders, you play the if game, but
they lost to the Jets too, right?
They did. I was there for that one, unfortunately.
Oh, God, lucky you.
Let me just put it this way: when I was walking out of the stadium that day, I was not envisioning 5-5.
Yeah.
I was done. I'm out.
I remember
you guys are killing me.
Saying that.
All right, when we come back, it's a mystery. And will we have Coach Smith or not? We'll find out. Before we reveal which superstars will join us on our iHeartRadio Jingle Ball Tour this year, relive the biggest shows and artists from Jingle Ball's past on our iHeartRadio exclusive Jingle Ball playlist. Open your free iHeartRadio app and search Jingle Ball to listen from anywhere, anytime. All right, Rip City Drive, Oregon and Oregon State's coming up on Friday. Kickoff will be at 5:30. The pregame at 3:30 on your home of the Beavers, 1190 KEX. And joining us right now is the head coach of your Oregon State Beavers. It's Jonathan Smith. Coach, good afternoon. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, always good to chat with you guys.
Always good. I wanted to ask you about the weather. It sure looked messy during the course of the game. And I'm just wondering how much of an impact did the weather conditions on Saturday against Washington impact what you guys were trying to do on offense?
Yeah, it was definitely wet in the first half, and it impacted some things. Probably impacted us more looking at it. I mean, they were able to throw a couple strikes in the conditions. I think both sides. I mean, dropping balls. We turned it over, and so yeah, it impacted some things, and could have handled it a little better. I do think the second half it turned into a beautiful night. Very light rain, some of it, but the rest of it was pretty nice in the second half. And obviously, looking at the second half, we had opportunities with the ball twice, fourth quarter, to take the lead. Weren't able to get over the hump.
Jonathan, you've had a chance to look at the video now, I'm sure. What do you, looking back, what was your biggest problem in that game, you think?
Well, I think the turnover thing hurt us. We lost that in a big way. And then you just look at overall third down, both sides of it. First half, we did not convert third down to stay on the field, and they were pretty good converting, and it extended some drives, got points that way. In the second half, us defensively did a great job getting off the field, and offensively converted more to stay on the field. That's what was really disappointing, is that the plan against those guys, how explosive they are, was to play a high possession game where keeping their offense on the sideline. We did a lot of that. It just did not, finish the thing in the fourth quarter.
Speaking of their high-scoring offense, what did you think about overall with the defense and the way they were able to contain, Penix and that high-passing offense? You held them to 162 yards and limited some of the big plays. What did you think overall about the D?
Yeah, I felt they did play well enough. I mean, you look at the first half, even when they scored all their points, a couple short fields. One of them they got a stop on, got no points. They get a touchdown off of it. I mean, 2 points. There's none on the D. We're punting the ball, and the ball goes over this punter's head. So that's 9 points right there. Again, that offense, we got a bunch of respect for that place. They are really good. But to shut them out in the second half defensively, especially when we got some big guys banged up, we got 2 true freshman corners played the entire second half, and to hold them down, it was a great performance by our defense.
Speaking of having people out, I'm hearing you lost Bloomfield. Is that right, Jonathan, for the season?
Yeah, it looks that way. Henley's been awesome for us, but it doesn't. And again, I know there's not a ton left in the season with a bowl game in this week, so don't expect him back.
Well, Coach, I mean, in the end, do you think it was the special teams and the turnovers? Because if I would have told you before the game, hey, Coach, you're going to hold Penix to 162 yards, you're going to dominate with 37 minutes of possession of time, you're going to outrush them, you're going to hold them scoreless in the second half, you'd be like, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The style of the game, the strategy of it, there was a lot that we were able to execute and create. But again, these things are tight. Give them some credit. They've won a bunch of games in a row. They don't do some fluke doing that. They were able to win the game at the end. We, even on the scoring, like we scored 4 times. Now they held us to 2 field goals, which was critical too. It was a couple red zone stops where we made field goals in tough conditions. But the difference between 7 and 3 points is huge. They scored 3 times, and we scored 4, and then obviously we gave them 2 points.
Yeah, Jonathan, there were mistakes, and I'm curious what you think about your running game in the second half. People are talking about, you should have run more or whatever. How did you feel about your execution with your run?
Yeah, the run game was going pretty good, first half especially. DJ contributed to that. He had some nice carries, short yardage, turned into longer gains. Damian had a great night. But, adjustments, finishing in the second half, especially on just starting a series, 1st and 10. We weren't getting the same type of gains. Got us into a little bit of second and long, so the ball got in the air a little bit more. And again, that's up with the games that played that way, strategy, coaching, adjustments. And so, yeah, we weren't overly real fired up on the run game in the second half overall picture.
We're talking with Jonathan Smith, head coach of the Oregon State Beavers. Did you see anything that you didn't expect from Washington, or did they show you everything you expected when you prepared looking at the film?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, again, looking at the film, these guys are good. These guys are physical. The run game part was showing up the last couple of weeks, which we were concerned coming in, and held that pretty good. I mean, we got fortunate on them. They creased us one time. Katan Oladapo has an unbelievable play, tracking him down, creating a fumble there. Offensively on the receiver end, those guys are as good as advertised. Penix throwing it in the conditions, buying time. He was tough to sack. That shown up on tape. Defensively, physicality, sound. The one DB who made a bunch of plays, he had a great game, and tip your hat to him, but we helped him a couple times.
Hey, Coach, can you help me with something? You can't attach a stat to this, so it's really hard to explain, but you mentioned Washington knowing how to win, and in college football a lot, for these teams that are trying to get into the playoff, it's a beauty contest to a degree because it's like, well, they won, but they didn't really play their best game. But when I watch Washington, I come away impressed with, some of the decision-making and the way they're able to find ways to win games. Is that a skill you develop, or how can you quantify teams that know how to execute and find ways to win games when they don't have their best stuff?
Right. I think it's the confidence level. If in tight scenarios, getting toward the end of the game, there's if you've done it before, there's some confidence to that. I think too. Yeah, Washington's not blowing out everybody. They're playing some really good teams. I think we're a part of that. Like they're playing some people. Utah, even the Duck game, how tight that was, and so they've played some quality teams and found ways to win. I mean, look at Arizona. Early in the year, they go to Arizona, win by 7. Well, it turns out Arizona's pretty good. And so there's some good teams in this league, and currently they're undefeated.
Jonathan, I know how disappointing it must be for you in games like this. And at the same time, you have to manage not only your disappointment, but the disappointment of your players. And you have a big game coming up this week. How is that going for you right now with your players, with yourself, the whole picture?
Yeah, throughout the year we talk about a process of getting back to work, win, lose, or draw, and we because it's a short week, we actually practiced today, which normally we wouldn't. And so I think it was a benefit to get back on the field. I thought the focus, the energy, crisp. We weren't out there really long, but a solid hour and a half, and those guys were locked in and moving around. So I think they've, again, this means a ton to them. Yeah, they had some serious disappointment. I think they're moving forward. They know we got to prepare well. They know this is a big-time opponent. It's an exciting rivalry game, Friday, national television. So they're all looking forward to that.
Hey, Coach, how does this Ducks team this year compare to some of the other Duck teams you've coached against in the past?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, I can't quickly think about all of them, but they're as good as we've played. I mean, in all facets. So often it starts with the quarterback, and they got as good a quarterback there is in the country. Back-to-back weeks here. Their run game is as effective as their pass game. Bucky Irving, he's got a couple of guys next to him. It's tough to defend. Troy Franklin making big-time plays, and they got multiple guys to throw it to. Similar to Washington now. I mean, back-to-back weeks and explosive offenses. Defensively, the thing is physical. They've got some guys that have been around the block, but also some new faces. They give you some challenges schematically on a lot of different looks. So they're well prepared. And even on special teams, these guys have been solid. I mean, the punter's doing a great job. They're not punting very much. But when they do, they're flipping the field. So just a well all-around good football team.
What are you going to have to do to beat them?
Yeah, we're going to have to play solid. We can't play perfect. We got to play solid, create some opportunities. I go back to the third down thing. The ability to be on defense, to get them off the field will be huge. And then vice versa, sustaining some drives. I look at the red zone piece. I go to all these games. The difference between 7, 3, and 0 points will have to be, I think, going into this game, really effective in the red zone.
How is their team speed? You mentioned the receivers, and I've enjoyed watching them play, but how is their team speed?
Solid. I mean, you look at it like on the secondary, the way they can run. You look at them on special teams, on when they're covering a punt or they're covering a kickoff. These guys are flying down there. They got some good speed matched with some physicality.
Jonathan, there's talk now about, trying to salvage the Civil War moving into the future. I'm wondering how important that is to you.
Yeah, I think there's some history to the game and the competition statewide, right? And being a part of the thing for a long time. There's some good value to that. I'm outside the room on kind of the decisions. There's a lot that goes into it, scheduling, mechanics, all those kind of things. So if it can work for both sides, I wouldn't be against it.
From a football aspect on that as a coach, what we were wondering is that if you were playing a difficult conference schedule, let's say you guys were in a difficult conference schedule, would it change the way you view adding a rivalry component to your non-conference?
Right. You want to play a compelling schedule. I haven't thought about it a ton. I think it's gone on other places, right? I'm just thinking like Florida State, or some of those type things. So it's gone on other places, and it seems like it works.
I would imagine we know the players love playing, and of course you were a part of it yourself. But I would imagine for the coaches, it's probably fun to prepare for those games too, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to play in games that are meaningful, games that the fan base is on both sides. There's energy behind it. I mean, counting on that stadium, I'm sure is going to be packed and energized. Tough place to play, and so those are the type of games you want to coach or play in.
Well, this week, of course, Thanksgiving on Thursday. You guys play on Friday. So what's going to be the plan? Will your family do kind of a team deal with the guys together? What's the plan for Thanksgiving meal?
Yep, we're kind of trying to do a combo of both. It'll be the day before the game, so we'll keep to our normal routine in the morning, do a light practice and then there'll be a meal up here that guys can eat all together. At the same time, want to have some flexibility in the schedule so players, coaches can get with their families in the afternoon, and then we'll do some evening meetings like we normally do it the night before the game.
Would you prefer an earlier kickoff, or do you like the 5:30 time slot?
Oh, 5:30 is not awful. I'm always a fan with earlier the better, but 5:30 is not 8 o'clock or something.
You played quarterback. I'm just curious because we've watched all these great quarterbacks, and you've talked on the show about how deep the conference is. When you watch Penix play, what do you respect most about his game?
Yeah, a lot. I do think the guy, there's just no panic. Guy's hanging around him. He can buy some time, and when he's no panic, so when he decides, it's quick release and accurate. He's a really good player.
And about Nix, it appears he's calling a lot of plays from the line of scrimmage. You get a guy who's made more starts than anybody in the history of college football. How much difference does it make to have a quarterback that experienced?
Yeah, he is in total command. You can just see it on tape. Like, just watching him, I think he does get him in some good plays, call a couple plays, protection, communication, no panic on the play clock. Sometimes they want to snap it early, sometimes not. Just total command out there. And he's experienced, played a lot of football games, and there's huge advantage to experience.
Final question for you. With DJU, what were some of the conversations you guys had during the game and after the game? Overall, what did you think about his play against Washington?
Yeah, I thought he competed. He really did. Element's not great. He made some throws, competed when he ran, set us up. I mean, ultimately, we had the ball twice down to win the game, did some stuff there. And so I do. I'd like him each week in and week out. The guy goes out and competes, manages our offense, makes some plays in the passing game, makes some plays with his feet, and we just need a couple of more this weekend.
Well, he had a scramble run that was amazing, and Martinez had a couple of massive runs. I mean, it's got to energize the entire squad when those guys are pulling off plays like that. It's awesome.
No question. Both those guys try to make it physical and tough to go down. And again, I go back to this idea of competing. Both those guys, when they got the ball in their hands, they weren't going down easy.
Well, Coach, we appreciate the time. We know that you're busy right now because you're on a short week, but thank you for talking about the game. We can't wait for Friday. Happy Thanksgiving, and good luck. We can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to you too.
You got it. There's Jonathan Smith. That's big time right there for him to join us. Thank you to Sean Scheffler for making that happen, Jonathan Smith for taking that time to join us, because you know how those coaches are. They have a schedule. They don't like the schedule jacked with, and so for Jonathan to make time for us is pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's Jonathan, and
he's a good dude.
He's first class. He really is. Always has been.
What do you think about Penix? Well, basically everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll say about DJU that I love and get a chance to know him and watch him play this year. Even in the midst when he's not playing his best game, the demeanor, the confidence that he carries himself with, and that scramble run he had was, I thought when he made that run, I was like, oh, they ain't losing this game.
That's what I thought, too. I thought, hey, this is a difference maker right here. That's a statement. That run was a statement.
Gosh, it's like their defense, they had the ball twice with the chance to take the lead, and they couldn't do it.
And I hadn't even thought about the fact they scored 4 times. Washington scored 3 times.
Yeah.
But just add that onto the pile of things that they did that Washington didn't do, and they still lost the game.
They did everything that I thought they would need to do to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't account for the turnover differential and the freaking special teams disaster.
And a few penalties along the way that slowed drives.
And I think it's obvious. Coaches don't like to use any excuses because it's not how they operate. But the weather impacted both teams.
It did.
Part of the reason why Penix threw for 162 yards because the weather was hot garbage.
And the first half was just it's a throwaway half, really. And it was nice that one team didn't jump out and get a big lead in the first half and take advantage of the conditions.
Yeah.
It was an even game in the first half.
I think if they showed Penix's hand, his hands are so big that throwing a wet football is not a problem. His fingers basically wrap around the entire ball.
I know.
Gosh, when he steps up and fires, he throws a pretty pass. It must be nice to have Odunze out there because it's like, I'm going to throw it up anyways because he'll probably come down with it.
He's thrown a lot of jump balls to that guy this year, and he's caught every one of them, I think.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'll say this. If Oregon State goes in there and wins that game, it washes away all sins from the 3 losses by 8 points.
For sure.
Because the only thing people would remember is like, oh, yeah, that's the year we knocked Oregon out of the Pac-12 title game.
And possibly the college football playoff.
Yeah, because if Oregon were to lose that game, they're not getting in.
No.
And Arizona's going to probably beat Arizona State.
They won't even get a conference title game.
No.
Wow. Can you imagine Arizona playing in the conference championship game and going in with nothing to lose, tremendous second half of the season, go in there and upset Washington?
And the coach could simply send a message of, hey, you're being disrespected. No one wants you in this game. So go out there and kick their ass.
Yeah.
And that would be their rematch chance against Washington after losing by 7 points to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Oregon State can right the wrongs here. Go in and beat Oregon in their crib, knock them out of the playoff, and that's all anyone's going to remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you solve that problem.
Yes, it is.
That's why you got to love rivalry games. Now, with all that said, do I think that that's going to happen? No. No, because Oregon's got the material they should win.
Yeah.
They're favored by 2 touchdowns for a reason. They're playing at home, and they got the material. So it would be a devastating loss for Dan Lanning if he were to drop that game. That'd be an all-timer right there.
Yeah.
And I'll say this for Oregon. Oregon State's dangerous right now because, they're out, right? They got nothing to lose now. So sometimes those teams can be a little bit dangerous because they might play a little more free.
Yeah.
Maybe the coaches will be a little bit more loose in terms of their decision-making, too. It can be dangerous sometimes because teams will go out there and be like, screw it, let's just let her rip.
They'll be dialing up trick plays, all that stuff that you usually save for the big rivalry game anyway.
Dude, if I was coaching that game, I'd pull out all the stops. I'd ask the players, you got any good trick plays you want me to? I'm taking all orders right now. We'll throw it all in there. Oh, you got to love it. You got to love it. 5:30 kick on Friday. Pregame at 3:30 on 1190 KX, your home of the Beavs. Oh, it's so good. Right now, Kansas City quickly out in front. 7-zip midway through the first quarter. Philadelphia and Kansas City Monday Night Football. Did you say the rumor out there is that Travis Kelce's already asked Taylor Swift's father?
It's my understanding. The rumor was that he has asked permission from her father to marry her. Permission was granted, and there was the rumor that he was going to ask her tonight after the game because the parents were all there at the game tonight, supposedly, and she's not there, so he won't be asking her tonight, apparently.
Do you think they'd put that on the Jumbotron? Would Travis Kelce do one of the...
So.
He can't do that.
No, come on. Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome to ask someone to marry you while they're wearing your jersey at a football game.
Supposedly it was going to be after the game in a quiet little ceremony somewhere.
He should go up into the suite during the game in uniform and propose and have it be on the big screen, the Jumbotron.
Just like that guy seated in section 310 who asked his girlfriend to
marry
him.
In a preseason basketball game.
In a preseason basketball
Honey,
game.
I love you, but you're only worth preseason basketball.
Yeah, I hope you'll remember this for the rest of your life. The moment you were asked to be married with all the popcorn and beer spilled on the floor around you.
Yikes. All right, high fives coming up next. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Rip City Radio is looking for photos of your children with Santa, not the smiling, successful photos, the other kind that you show your child melting down like a snowman in July. Submit your photo today at ripcityradio.com for your chance to win a Visa gift card just in time to do some holiday shopping. Enter today and good luck from Mountain Timber Market, Quantum Fiber, and
for it. It's got to be some sort of mistake. I mean, look at me. I'm an attractive hand giving a high five.
High five. It's time for Dwight and Chad to hand out their high fives.
All right, Godfather. I got to do it, but my high five's going out to Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. They're the hottest team in the NFL with 4 straight wins. And Russell Wilson right now, 19 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Best TD to interception ratio in the NFL. Top 3 in quarterback rating. Top 3 in completion percentage. 5-5 and well alive in the AFC playoff picture. It's unbelievable. I'm just enjoying it. I thought Monday night last week against Buffalo was a great feeling. Yeah, not as good as last night. That was a wild finish to that game. How about that catch from Cortland Sutton in the back of the end zone? Was that good?
That was amazing. It wasn't just good. It was amazing. I was shocked. I thought, intercept.
All right, not Taylor Swift, but DeAndre Swift has just scored a touchdown. And is there any relation to Taylor on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought so.
Yeah.
It's now a tie game. First quarter, 7-7, extra point pending for the Philadelphia Eagles. Who's going to get your high five, sir?
I got to go with Jonathan Smith.
He was great tonight.
Yeah, and I understand how, he's got a lot going on. This is a tough week for him. And he comes off a loss. That's the other thing I respect. He's come in off a couple of really tough losses and answered every question we asked.
I mean, he gave an honest assessment. He's like, hey, just like I thought, we did everything we wanted to do, but we made too many mistakes. Turnovers, special teams, and we didn't get the job done.
Yeah.
It's funny. I said it was 7-7 before the extra point was kicked. The kicker ricocheted off the upright and got it through for the extra point. Those extra points now are no longer a given. They're not. Yeah, Jonathan Smith was terrific tonight. Yeah, you go in there and win that game against Oregon, the whole season is looked at completely differently.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm obsessed with bowl projections. I like to see who's being slotted where.
Yeah, what's it look like?
This is actually really good, but it's looking more and more like you could get Oregon State and Clemson in the Holiday Bowl.
Whoa.
That is must-see TV.
Wow, DJU.
Against this former That's the matchup. And I'm telling you, these bowl execs are geniuses. If you can get a matchup like that with some personal situations on the line.
That's money.
That is a game you got to see.
What bowl was that?
Holiday. Yep. So it looks like right now for the Pac-12, Arizona is being slotted potentially in the Alamo Bowl against Oklahoma, which is a good game. Oregon or Washington going to the playoff, the other likely in the Fiesta Bowl. USC to the Sun Bowl. UCLA in the LA Bowl. And that's kind of what you're looking at there. Interesting.
I'd like to see USC versus Tulane to give USC a chance to avenge their bowl loss last season.
Yeah,
Tulane.
Gosh, Oregon State Clemson's an underrated great idea.
Gosh, I was shocked that you said that. I thought, who are they going to be? Clemson. Wow.
Yeah, Dabo,
that's a good one.
And Jonathan Smith, DJU going up against his former team. That's a watchable game.
Yeah, it is.
Very, very watchable game there. And how about Arizona out of nowhere to potentially having a shot to get to the Pac-12 title game? If not, you wind up in the Alamo Bowl, big bowl. You get a chance to take on Oklahoma. What a turnaround that Jed Fish has had in a very short period of time to get that program on track and in a position where they're still alive for the Pac-12 title. That's wild.
It will also be interesting this year. The Pac-12 lately has had kind of a lousy bowl record. It'd be interesting to see how these teams do because we think the conference is better this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to win these games.
It really does help.
Yes, it does. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But, yeah, that would be good. Oregon State Clemson in the Holiday Bowl would not be a bad scenario.
That is fun.
Are you hoping for the Holiday Bowl since you're going to be traveling with the Beavs? You want Holiday Bowl over Sun Bowl, don't you?
Yeah, that's the only bowl game I'll be traveling to. I've reached out to some new friends in El Paso to help me out with the Beav work if Beavers go to Sun Bowl.
No one wants to go to El Paso.
No thanks on that one. No.
I'll be there, though. I'm going to the Sun Bowl no matter who's in.
That's right, you are.
Yep.
Why are you doing that?
Because me and my boy Steve, we like traveling to random bowl games that we grew up watching.
Have you never been to the Sun Bowl?
I've been there once. Saw Arizona State play Florida State, and it was a blast. We had great weather and a good time. It was a lot of fun. Storied stadium, and I grew up watching that game, so we're going to head back, and we're hoping for, because a couple of weeks ago, we want the Clemson-Oregon State matchup. That's the one we want, but the problem is that as teams win and other teams lose, it shifts the ball matchups, but that's what I was hoping for down in the Sun Bowl, Clemson and Oregon State.
I covered a Sun Bowl in Y2K.
Yes.
And that was when they were starting to rank airports for safety reasons. And the El Paso airport was the worst in the country for problems that could go wrong. Remember, Y2K, everybody thought computers are going out.
Yeah.
Air traffic control is no good. You won't be able to fly anywhere. And actually, nothing happened at all. But we didn't really enjoy our time in El Paso. I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, I did. I had a different experience. It was good. And actually, the airport, I went well after Y2K, but it's one of those airports that's very small, easy to get in and out of, which is very nice.
It is, yeah.
I'm a fan of small airports that you can get in and out of real easy. So, I don't know. We'll see how things shake out. Yeah, so there you go. That's what we're looking at. And I think UCLA right now is slotted to play potentially UNLV, who's had a huge turnaround under Coach Barry Odom. They've only got 2 losses on the year, coming off a big win over Air Force on the road. So
that reminds me, did you see the latest about UCLA coaching job?
Well, I heard that they're thinking about moving on from Chippy.
Latest is they're not. He's not going to get fired, is what I heard just yesterday, that's all changed, and he's not going anywhere.
And what do you think changed their minds from the rumors that were out there? That's good for Oregon State that Chip Kelly's not going to be let go.
Well, I just think he deserves to stay. I mean, I think beating USC helped a lot. I think that was a big deal. But come on, how good do you think you're going to be when you're UCLA? You're not. Your program's not the emphasis at that school. Everybody's all involved with the basketball program. Football's always been a second thought down there.
Well, and with the young quarterback, give him a couple of years, and you're going to have a team that'll be something to be reckoned with, right? I mean, and at least he got the defense together this year.
Yes.
They fielded a very, very strong defense.
Yeah.
One of the best in the country, which is different for Chip Kelly.
And he'll figure the offense out. I have no doubt about that.
You never have to worry about that with him. All right, big thanks to Justin Meyers for his brief appearance. Jonathan Smith for jumping on board. We appreciate you, Coach. Happy Thanksgiving. Michael Shacker for running all the madness behind the scenes. Coming up next is Courtside Mondays with Chris Burkhart. Be sure to go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. Subscribe, and you can find the live links to all of our shows and join us in studio and in the YouTube chat. Have a good night, my friend. Oh, thanks, Chad.
Welcome to Blazers Courtside Monday Night, hosted by Chris Burkhardt. For the latest news on the Portland Trail Blazers and around the NBA, it's Courtside Monday Night. And now, here's Chris Burkhardt.
Chris Burkhardt. You can go find me over on the X app at Chris J. Burkhardt. We'll continue the conversation well into the evening if you'd like. You can ask me any questions you want. You can also find us right now on YouTube, where you can see my fuzzy head of hair. Oh man, the gel didn't stick very well today, so gotta fix that. You can go over there, go on to youtube.com. Just type in Rip City Radio. It'll pop right up. You can like, you can share, you can subscribe. You can get your notifications for whenever we go live on that fine app, which is quite a bit nowadays because you got Courtside Monday live. You also got the Rip City Drive live Monday through Friday. Blazers game day, the fifth quarter, as well as Rip City Mornings, all streaming live on YouTube. So go over there, continue the conversation. Plenty of people in there. The hangovers from the Rip City Drive. This is where I just answer everyone else's questions. People want to know if Dwight's a Swiftie. Dwight's totally a Swiftie. He doesn't want to let the world know, but he's a Swiftie. Who's not? I think everyone is in some way, right? Just like everybody's in love with these Blazers right now. But that love was tested on Sunday because for the first time all season, the Blazers looked just outmanned, out-hustled, and out of sorts. They did not look good. And Chad and I all year long on the fifth quarter we've been trying to find the positive, right? Because that's what this season is. It's one of those rough seasons where you're young. You know you're young. You're going to take your lumps. That's my word of the year, lumps, right? You're going to take them. You're going to get hit right on the noggin a couple times, and you're going to have to just keep pushing forward. But you're going to get better in the long run. Now, there's been plenty of moments, plenty of times where the team has lost, but they've looked good, right? You can go to the 121-118 loss to the Kings, right? That one took everything the team had. That was an OT game, but they look good. They look good. They go even with the injuries, and they only lose by 6 to the Lakers. And you're like, this team, man, they are showing the fight. If they lose like this all year long, that's okay. I can accept it because they're fighting, right? And then you get Utah, you get Cleveland, you get the Lakers again. You drop all those games. The margin of defeat increases a little bit, but you're like, okay, you know what happened there was they played real good, all things considered, for about 3 quarters. Then they started to fizzle out, man. There's not a lot of bodies. They don't have shooters. They can't keep up. But it's okay. This team's fighting. They're showing us that they have some drive, some will, some determination. And then Sunday happened. The Oklahoma City Thunder come into Moda, and the Blazers fall flat. No sense of urgency. No offensive attack. Yeah, Shaedon Sharpe. I mean, one of the best highlights of the entire game was Shaedon Sharpe jumping for a rebound. Right? Oh, Shaedon skied for that one. He got up high. Got a rebound. Good for him. Team got the L, though. Okay? 134-91. Not the game you wanted if you were the home team. Not the game you wanted if you were the Portland Trailblazers. And this was one of those just historic games where the Thunder were historically good shooting the ball. It was unreal what they did. 60% from the floor, 61.1% from 3, 100% from the free throw line. They were taking shots. They were making shots. Chet Holmgren just 20 minutes, 16 points, 6 rebounds, couple blocks. He didn't need to do much, but he was 6 of 6 from the floor. Couldn't find an answer for him. We went out there. He did his thing early, and then he went to bed for the rest of the night. And the Blazers, again, yes, we get it. They're young, right? This is what we're going to talk about all year long. It's a young team. But wait till they get Scoot back. Wait till they get Ant back. Wait till they get Malcolm Brogdon back. Yeah, that's going to give them some more shooting power. It's going to give them their guard back that they want to develop and hope that can develop into the future of the franchise at the point guard position in Scoot. But I don't know if it's going to give them the will, the oomph, the desire to go out there and play hard every single night. That's the tough part. Because they've looked really good, and that night, Sunday, was just a stinker. It was just a stinker. The good part about it is that was game 13 of 82. And I do not think that this team is going to go roll out there for another 60-plus games and look like they did on Sunday. They'll get right. They'll get right. Ant is looking like he might be back right on his timeline, so probably around like the December 16th mark, right? Sometime mid-December. Malcolm Brogdon, rumored that he might have been able to play on Sunday. So possible high chance he gets upgraded to questionable and is looking to maybe getting his return to the floor against Phoenix tomorrow. Which tomorrow, remind you, that is a 6 o'clock tip, which means game day will start right here at 3 o'clock. So maybe he returns. Scoot as well. You saw him pregame doing some warm-ups on the sideline, on the baseline. Putting that ankle under a little bit of pressure, testing it out. He's getting closer to a return. And those guys, those shooters might have been the difference in a few games, right? Fully healthy might have been the difference in the 3-point loss to Sacramento, might have been the difference in the 6-point loss to Los Angeles. But this team is still a team that's not going to find a lot of wins as this season rolls along. That's just the fact of the matter. So Chad and I talk about this every single game day, and we talk about it every single fifth quarter, that the smartest thing you can do as a Blazer fan is understand that. Understand that, and then find the glimmers of hope. Find the little specks of gold that you can latch onto and enjoy the season. Because that's why, to me, even through the bad games, even through a 7-game losing streak, this team has not won since November 3rd. Blame me for all the bad luck, because this losing streak started on my birthday. Remember, the 5th of November. Okay? But you got to find those little things, because when you understand that this season is not about the wins and losses, it's about what this team can be, what this team can become. That's where you get your enjoyment out of this. Because like Chad and I said last night, someone was asked us on the phone, called in, how do you guys keep going? How do you guys find something to talk about when you know that the season's going to be a long one? It's because for the first time in a long time, whether you like it or not, team has picked a lane. They came to the fork in the road, and rather than just staring blankly at the fork, deciding what do I do next, putting it in reverse and backing up a little bit, and then starting to go left, but then putting it back in reverse and thinking a little bit more, then going right, and then put it back in reverse, saying screw it, and just going right down the middle and saying, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm going to get in trouble. I think the cops might be coming, so you put it in reverse, and you go back, you just stare at the fork. You knew what you were getting, right? Oh, Dame's going to go out there. He's going to average 30 points a game. He's going to have a couple 60 burgers. Why not? Team's going to jump on his back. He's going to carry them. They might make the play in, and we're going to sit here and we're going to say, they just need a small forward and a defensive 3-and-D type guy. Lather, rinse, repeat, right? But now, it's the unknown. It's the great question mark. Now, people get upset because we're preaching patience, but for the first time in a long time, and we said it all summer, they were at that fork, and they said, this is the direction we're going to want to go. They turned that wheel to the left, and they floored it. They traded everybody outside of Anthony Simons. They drafted Scoot. They drafted Shea. They drafted Chris Murray, Ryan Rupert. They trade for DeAndre Ayton as part of that Dame deal. They get Robert Williams, who unfortunately went down with an injury, but they picked a lane, and that lane was rebuilt. And so that's exciting when you understand that that's what's on the line here. Now, there are people who don't like this because with any time that you go from what you know, there is chance for failure. You are into the unknown, right? Dame was your comfort blanket. I had one when I was a kid, right? Mom said it was time to go to bed. It was time to take a nap. You went and grabbed your comfort blanket, and it helped you fall asleep. It was just comfortable. That's what Dame was. Where they are right now, though, this is uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable because it's something that this particular fan base is not used to. How many times has this team truly gone full rebuild? Truly. Through the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, the absolute just stretches of making it to the playoffs. Runs in the early 90s to the NBA Finals, runs in the 99-2000, making it to the Western Conference Finals, a team that very well could have won that championship had they not just imploded in the fourth quarter against the Lakers. You go out there, you make a couple moves, and then you get Brandon Roy and Aldridge real quick, and boom, there's a quick turnaround. You're right back to competing. You go, you have a little bit of a downtime for a split second of blip, and then you go get Damian Lillard, but he's paired with LaMarcus Aldridge, who's a bona fide all-star, and guess what? We're just going to click. We're going to click. We're going to get this thing going. We're going to start winning ball games. Not a lot of 15, 20 win seasons in Blazers history. And it feels like that might be what's going to happen this year. So again, it's uncomfortable. It's uncharted. It's not what you're used to. And so when I say to practice that patience, it's to find those things within this year that are important. What is important is Shea making the progress we expect? I think right now the answer might be yes. He's a little tired early on, that's for sure, but that's because there's nobody around him. Pretty much the only true healthy guard on this team. Skylar Mays has been wonderful, but let's not kid ourselves into what Skylar Mays truly is. He's your depth play. He's your third guard on the bench, and you're very lucky to have him because he's good. He's good, but on this fully healthy team, he's not playing over Ant. He's not playing over Scoot. He's not playing over Malcolm Brogdon. But he's starting for your team right now. You're starting Toumani Camara at the 3, who doesn't have the offensive game yet. Defensively, he might be something. He might be something. He brings it on that side. But he doesn't do a ton offensively. Obviously, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, but there's some learning curves there too. It's like I've said on the fifth quarter, like everyone gets upset at DeAndre Ayton, but DeAndre Ayton, again, is out there trying to run pick and rolls and run sets with guys who are in the G League. If it wasn't Skylar Mays, it was Jeremy Bouye, who is going up and down between the G League right now. He's coming up, playing with the big boys, and there's an off day, and you're getting the tweet from the PR team that he's going back down, and he's playing with the G League. And then this is the guy that DeAndre Ayton has to go out there and run pick and rolls with half the time to try to figure out what's going on. So it's hard for DeAndre Ayton, too, because he's not playing with his normal guys. And no, this is not a big excuse to say, the team's going to suck, just embrace it. It is more like, yes, the team's going to suck. You know it. But find the little things throughout here that you can start to really focus on and watch. And again, Shea, DeAndre in the long run, how does he continue to develop, especially when Scoot gets in there? As Devin says in the YouTube chat, and you can go on right now, jump on YouTube, join the chat as well. I'll comment on everything you guys type in there if I see it. But he said, Kamara is playing above his level. Absolutely. Kamara was kind of this throw-in mean, he was a second-round pick. How many people passed on him? Hopefully you got like the next Draymond, the next Jokic, right? A guy that you're like, yep, look at that. Drafted him during a Taco Bell commercial. Now he's a stud for us. We needed a starting small forward. We got one. And that's nice. But these are the only things you want to watch, because the biggest question mark right now, for me personally, and I'll admit I've given him the benefit of the doubt, but that is Chauncey. And we're going to talk about the guy that everybody wants to question when we return here on Courtside Monday with yours truly, Chris Burkhardt, on your home in the Blazers, Rip City Radio, 620.
Back to Courtside Monday with Chris Burkhardt here on 620 Rip City Radio.
Are you trying to say something about me, Shacker? Like, oh, they gave Burkhardt his own show. Free speech for the dumb.
Long intro to this song, no lyrics for a minute.
That's the only reason you picked it?
Correct.
Free speech for the dumb. Metallica, baby. All right, welcome back into Courtside Monday. Chris Burkhardt here, going off on a little, Metallica tangent. Hard not to when I hear metal in my ear. But we got to get back to the topic at hand, and that is the Blazers. We've got a few minutes left on this show. Quick one tonight, not going the full hour because 6:30 we're going to toss over to Seattle Kraken hockey. Kraken playing the Calgary Flames. That should be a good one. Shacker was talking about how, he used to like the Winterhawks, but now he likes that NHL stuff a lot more. Man, when I was a kid, I got that ESPN National Hockey Night on the Super Nintendo, and I would play it all the time. And then I'd get very, very angry because I would want to be the Winterhawks, but I didn't realize that they weren't an NHL team. So I would scroll through the team select screen forever trying to get to the Winterhawks, and then eventually got mad and just played with the Chicago Blackhawks because they look the same.
Oh, you couldn't develop your own team like some of the other sports games out there?
Yeah, not on a Super Nintendo game in 1995. So, there we go. And for those of you listening on radio, keep in mind, you can get home, you can jump on YouTube. You can grab your phone. You can grab your computer. Just go to youtube.com and type in Rip City Radio, and you'll be able to see my ugly mug if Michael Shacker will remember to take off the title slate that says "We'll be right back." If he ever does that, you'll be able to look at me. There's only one or two people in the world who enjoy that. Your wife and then your mom. Because your mom's like, hey, look, it's my son. Everyone, look at that. Other than that, you can just listen to me. Now, I said I wanted to talk about Chauncey a little bit. Maybe we'll play some audio from him, but I don't know if we'll have a ton of time here. Because here's the thing with Chauncey, okay? I've said I'm giving this guy the benefit of the doubt because I think this is really, truly, as dumb as it sounds, you guys could be mad at me all you want, but I think this is the first year we actually get to see him coach. I think it was hard for a rookie coach, no matter how well respected he was. And here's the thing, everyone respected him. That was all the talk. Oh, look how he's dapping up everyone during games. The players love him. Yeah, they love him as a player. Doesn't mean they love him as a coach, right? So he goes to that locker room. He's got to try to tell Dame what to do. And, keep in mind that his career starts. You got to tell CJ what to do still, Nurk, everybody. Might be kind of hard to do your thing because, you ain't going to teach the old dog new tricks. And then you have to come in okay, we're going to go to the playoffs. We're winning this year. And then injuries happen. Nope, tank. And then the next year, same thing. This is a playoff team. We're good. Maybe we're a couple pieces away, but we're gonna compete. We're gonna make the playoffs. We got goals. We got aspirations. That sounded good till about January 1st, and then tank. And so he went from trying to win to tanking again. And again, playing a bunch of guys out there who weren't going to be on the roster the coming year. This year, they revamped everything. Gone were the old Blazers. Again, the comfort blankets we talked about earlier. And now, as I've said many a time as my analogy for the season, he finally gets to mold the clay. He gets to do this the way he wants to. The team gets to be molded in his image. And to this point, there has been good parts to it. The defense looks much improved. That's for sure. But how much of that is just finally having bodies that can do it on that end? Part of the reason Tamani Kamara's looks so good for the Blazers is not just because he's good on defense, but the fact that he's not 6'3". Right? He's a big-bodied guy. DeAndre Ayton is far more athletic of a 7-footer than Yusuf Nurkic was. Right? Yusuf Nurkic has the body and the size. He's going to be a force down low, but DeAndre Ayton's going to be able to move around. He's going to be able to play defense as he's done. Matisse Thybulle, obviously, very good on that end. I think Shaedon Sharpe's been better than we expected on that end. Guys are playing, but you also have size. That matters too. Because for as good as the defense has been, the offense has been bad. Like worse than the league, bad. No three-point shot to speak of. Assist numbers lower than you'd like. No movement, no sense of urgency on that side. So you're seeing a regression there. And so for all the good, there is the bad, but then you got to ask yourself, when you do see the good, how much of that is Chauncey? And how much of that is just these guys getting a chance to go out there and ball and trying to prove something? Shea is getting 40 minutes a night. He's leading the league in minutes. Wasn't getting that much run when it was Damon Ant in front of him. Right? Tamani might not have seen the floor if this team were in playoff mode. Right? But he's out there right now and he's balling. And he's playing well. People like it. And then as Devin points out in the comments, it's like, yeah, the defenses looked better, but they got blasted on Sunday to the tune of 134 points. So the defense still has holes too. So I'm starting to reach the point myself, and I think like mid-December, right there to the turn of the calendar, is a really good test of what you have in everything, right? You've played through your quarter plus of the season. You have an identity. The identity of this team outside of that one game on Sunday, and I think this is what they're going to do, is they're going to go out, they're going to play hard. They're going to compete every single night. They're just going to be nice. They just don't have the horses to get it done. But also, again, when they do look good, and Tamani's looking good on the defensive end, and Shaden Sharp is going out there and he's filling up the highlight reel, how much of that is Chauncey? And how much of that is the fact that Shaden Sharp would go get those highlight dunks or those highlight rebounds, whether it was Chauncey or Popovich or Spoelstra or Phil Jackson or Jack Ramsey or anybody else, right? Or the fact that Tamani Kamara, who is obviously showing that he knows how to play defense, would be playing defense no matter who his coach was too. And that part has to be factored in as we continue to move along. Because if you give a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, or even Tamani Kamara, who is not your average rookie, he's not coming in at 19 years old, but he's still a rookie at the NBA level. If you give them minutes, they should just progress naturally and find where their ceiling is. Some of these young guys have low ceilings, so they hit them pretty quick. Some guys who have higher ceilings, like a Shea, you continue to watch them grow. But again, how much of that is just the fact that that's the nature of the beast? Give me minutes. I'm going to grow. Give me food, I will eat, right? That's what they're doing. So I like what I've seen. I do. I'm just not 100%